Quickly before this video starts, I want to let you guys know that this is a compilation of all my videos on my forever save in Pokemon Omega Ruby, spanning about a month of work. I've gone through and cut out all the intros and outros so that the video flows more smoothly and feels like an actual movie rather than awkward cuts. That being said, whether you're studying, sleeping, or playing through your own forever save, I really hope you enjoy this movie. Do you ever grab one of your old Pokemon games and wipe the save file, only to beat a couple gym leaders and never touch it again? Well, trust me, you're not alone. I'm starting a fresh save file in Pokemon Omega Ruby and I'm never going to reset it. Here is my journey through the Hoenn region in my forever save file. To understand why anyone would want a forever save, I need to explain the goals of this video. First off, I want to catch every Pokemon in the game. As we progress through the routes, I'll be going through the decks catching every single one. I'll also briefly touch on each Pokemon's dex entry as we catch them, so you'll walk away learning something new too. Secondly, I will be fighting every trainer in the game. I essentially want to 100% the game as I will be keeping this file, well, forever. Finally, I will be collecting every item in the game. So each time we enter a new route, I'll battle all of the trainers, then go back through and collect all of the items and catch every new Pokemon. And if you want to follow along, by the end of this, we'll both have a fully complete copy of Pokemon Omega Ruby. With the goals out of the way, let's jump into this beautiful game. The Hoenn region is definitely my least familiar region. I've played through these games a couple of times before, along with a singular playthrough of Pokemon Emerald, but there's definitely some gray areas in the storyline for me. For our playthrough, I'm going to be putting our starter straight into the PC, but since Trico is my favorite, I'm gonna pick him. Now, if you're confused as to why I would box this adorable green gecko, well, that's because I'm going to be transferring up a team that I shiny hunted in Pokemon Platinum. If you are following along, don't stress about this because these Pokemon will not count towards our Pokédex total. I just enjoy playing through the games with shiny Pokemon that I hunt. In addition, I'm also trading up a shiny Smeargle named Athena. I hunted her in Platinum and she's going to help us catch all of the Pokemon here in Hoenn. Again, this is not something you as a viewer need to do, but I encourage you to try out some different Pokemon on your journey through Hoenn instead of the standard Mudkip, Manectric, and Gardevoir. With a quick stop in Pokemon Bank, here's the team fully transferred up. First is Pinky the Mareep. She has an adamant nature, but we still support her. Next up is Melody the Swablu. She's a little overleveled, so she'll be staying in the PC for now. Following her is Neptune the Nidoran. He's blue, and that's really all I have to say on him. Next is Kitsune the Ninetales. I have some beef with this Pokemon if you've seen my shiny videos, but hopefully we can resolve it here in Hoenn. Fifth is Luna the Glaceon. I've wanted to use this Pokemon for a long time, but never got around to it, so now feels like the perfect opportunity. Last is Princess the Milotic. She also has an adamant nature, but we're gonna make it work anyways. And we can't forget Athena the Smeargle. I wanted to teach her Substitute, but I didn't have any Pokemon in Platinum that knew it. So I went with the moveset of False Swipe, Super Fang, Recover, and Spore. So with the game's tutorial complete and the Pokemon transferred up, let's start with Route 101. There are no items or trainers here, but 3 Hoenn staples, and the first that I find is a cute little Wurmple. Using the spikes on its rear end, Wurmple peels the bark off trees and feeds on the sap that oozes out. This Pokemon's feet are tipped with suction pads that allow it to cling to glass without slipping. Honestly, one of the things I'm really looking forward to is learning more about these Pokemon. Usually I catch them and toss them into the PC, but actually getting to know how they behave is really intriguing to me. My next encounter here is a Zigzagoon. Zigzagoon restlessly wanders everywhere at all times. This Pokemon does so because it is very curious. It becomes interested in anything that it happens to see. I can relate to Zigzagoon a lot, and maybe you do too. There's so many distractions these days, and sometimes I really struggle to stay focused on what's important. It takes me a while to find, but the last encounter here is a Poochyena. At first sight, Poochyena takes a bite at anything that moves. This Pokemon chases after prey until the victim becomes exhausted. However, it may turn tail if the prey strikes back. I find it really interesting that Poochyena is considered a predator. The way the Pokédex describes it almost makes it seem vicious. With that, we've officially done everything on Route 101, so let's move on to the next one. Just north of Oldale Town is Route 103, and the only thing we can do here now is catch a Wingull. Wingull has the habit of carrying prey and valuables in its beak and hiding them in all sorts of locations. This Pokemon rides the winds and flies as if it were skating across the sky. I think this is a super cool dex entry because I can imagine Wingull taking its owner's valuables and hiding them in super annoying spots. Moving on to Route 102, we have 4 trainers to take on. First up is youngster Calvin, and Nidoran can just barely take care of his Zigzagoon. Also, you may notice I did teach my Pokemon some decent moves. For example, my Nidoran here knows Poison Jab and Dig. This is not meant to be a challenge run or anything, but a relaxing 100% playthrough of the game. Not only does teaching these moves help in trainer battles, but the trade EXP boost will make it to where we don't need to do any grinding throughout the entire run. Bugcatcher Rick is up next, and he has a Wurmple, and now that Neptune is leveled up, he can take care of it pretty easily. Youngster Alan has a Poochyena and a Tailo, but our blue boy cleans them up like he's a janitor at a Wendy's. Wait, what? Finally is last Tiana, who just has a simple Zigzagoon, and with all 4 of these trainers taken down, it's time to catch some more Pokemon. But first, I want to appreciate these little scenes added in ORAS. These details blew me away the first time I played this game, and it's stuff like this that really makes me love the franchise as a whole. One thing I find fascinating about the Dex Nav is that it picks one of the encounters on the route randomly when popping up. For example, Ralts has a 4% encounter rate here, but it pops up immediately with the Dex Nav, saving us a ton of time running through the grass. Ralts senses the emotions of people using the horns on its head. This Pokemon rarely appears before people, but when it does, it draws closer if it senses that the person has a positive disposition. First off, I never would have thought these things on Ralts' head were horns. And secondly, the fact that it can sense a person's qualities is so cool. Just south, I hop over this ledge and pick up a potion, and then grab the Oran and Pechaberries located to the east. Then another Dexnav Pokemon pops up, and it's the 1% Surskit. This thing is so helpful. Also, I will definitely be shiny hunting something in this video. There's 2 new method hunts introduced in Gen 6, and I'm super excited to try them. From the tips of its feet, Surskit secretes an oil that enables it to walk on water as if it were skating. This Pokemon feeds on microscopic organisms in ponds and lakes. This is so fascinating to me because it's different from how pond skaters walk on water in real life. Having it use an oil to stay afloat rather than the water's surface tension is really interesting. The last Pokemon available here is Seedot, or Lotad if you're playing Alpha Sapphire, and thanks to another Dexnav pop-up, we can catch him pretty easily. Seedot attaches itself to a tree branch using the top of its head. It sucks moisture from the tree while hanging from the branch. The more water it drinks, the glossier this Pokemon's body becomes. I just assumed this Pokemon was born on trees, but having it manually attach itself to moisturize is such a unique approach to this Pokemon. With everything done on Route 102, it's time to check out Petalburg City. Our dad runs the gym here, but the only thing we can do right now is help Wally catch a Ralts. Also, you may have noticed we have a little bit of a disobedience problem with our Pokemon. It will be inconvenient up until the first or second gym, but afterwards it'll be smooth sailing. Just west of here is Route 104. Here we're able to take down youngster Billy's Seedot with a single poison jab and his Tailo with a second one. In the grass, I'm lucky enough to get a Dexnav Tailo to appear, and it's the only new Pokemon available to us. Tailo courageously stands its ground against foes, however strong they may be. This gutsy Pokemon will remain defiant even after a loss. On the other hand, it cries loudly if it becomes hungry. It's pretty funny to me that this guy will cry if he doesn't get his food, but refuses to back down from any fight. Also, if you notice that it's daytime in one clip and then nighttime in another, that's because I didn't play all of this in one sitting. Sometimes just 30 minutes here or an hour there. But I want to make it clear that there was no time changing done during this run. Afterwards, I grabbed some hidden items on the beach, being a potion, an antidote, and a heart scale. I then make my way north to grab the berries here before challenging Rich Boy Winston. He just has a Zigzagoon, but thanks to Neptune's newly learned double kick, we're able to take it down with a single attack. Route 204 is divided into 2 sections, the north and the south side. and in between them is the Petalburg Woods. We have done everything on the south side of Route 204, so we'll tackle the north side after the Petalburg Woods. I absolutely love this area. The green is perfect and it feels so cozy. Our first task here is to take down all of the trainers. Bugcatcher Lyle has 3 Wurmples, and despite being a little disobedient, Neptune is eventually able to take them all down. Afterwards, a Devon researcher asks us to help protect him from a Team Magma grunt, and Pinky makes her debut here, taking down the Pooch. For our troubles, the researcher rewards us with the EXP share, which is one of the most useful items in the game. There's one final trainer here in the woods, being Bugcatcher James. He has a single Ninkata, but seeing as it's immune to electric type moves, it takes Pinky 4 tackles before it finally falls. I head south to pick up a hidden potion and then exit the forest to grab a Pokeball. Once back inside, I notice a new Pokemon popping up on the dex nav, a Slackoth, so I make sure to add her to the collection. Slackoth lolls around for over 20 hours a day. Because it moves so little, it does not need much food. This Pokemon's sole daily meal consists of just 3 leaves. Honestly, I'm impressed by you, Slackoth. Just 3 leaves a day is a harsh diet. On the left side of the forest, I'm able to collect a Paralyze Heal, and then up north, I find an Ether and a hidden Balm Mushroom. There's actually quite a few Pokemon to capture here, so let's knock them out. First, I find myself a wild Cascoon. Cascoon makes its protective cocoon by wrapping its body entirely with a fine silk from its mouth. Once the silk goes around its body, it hardens. This Pokemon prepares for its evolution inside a cocoon. Second, I find the adorable Shroomish, easily one of my favorite Gen 3 Pokemon. Shroomish live in damp soil in the dark depths of forests. They are often found keeping still under fallen leaves. This Pokemon feeds on compost that is made up of fallen, rotted leaves. Shroomish, you deserve a better diet than this. I kind of feel bad for you. Last is Silcoon, which is also my preferred split of the Wurmple line. Silcoon tethers itself to a tree branch using silk to keep from falling. This Pokemon hangs quietly while it awaits evolution. It peers out of the silk cocoon through a small hole. I then go back and catch a second Silcoon and Cascoon because I'm pretty sure Beautifly and Dustox are not found in the wild, so we'll have to manually evolve them. With those caught, that completes this area, so we're moving to the north side of Route 104. I first grab the Echoed Voice TM from this youngster before picking the berries above him. Inside the flower shop, we can collect the Wilmer Pail, and just outside, we can collect a Pokeball, Super Potion, and an X attack. Lady Cindy boasts a level 10 Zigzagoon, and it takes Pinky a while, but eventually she's able to connect with a Thunderbolt to take it down. Last Haley has a Lotad and a Shroomish, but Pinky and Neptune are able to take them down without an issue. Twins Gia and Mia, though, are a different story. The disobedient problem is really starting to show here, but we're not too far away from the first gym. My Pokemon finally connect, taking down the twins. The final trainer here is Fisherman Ivan, but Pinky can tear through his fish with just a few Thunderbolts. And our reward is just some more berries, but we have finally arrived in Rustboro City. Here, we make sure to collect an X Defense, the TM for False Swipe, the Cut HM, a Floatstone, a Premier Ball, and the Quick Claw. Before I know it, I'm standing inside the Rustboro City gym, and it looks so good in this game. All 3 of the trainers only carry Geodude, so I'll spare you the details, but Princess got to take them all down with a couple of Scalds. Finally, we stand face to face with Roxanne, and as much as I would love to tell you how riveting this fight was, Geodude falls to a Scald, and so does Nosepass. For our victory, Roxanne rewards us with the Stone Badge and the TM for Rock Tomb, but most importantly, all Pokemon below level 20 will listen to us without question, so that's going to make these future battles a lot faster. Oh, and also Nidoran evolved into Nidorino. Just east of here is Route 116, and there are a ton of trainers. But while I fight them, I'm going to talk about my personal thoughts on the Hoenn region. I stated previously that I had little experience with this region, so I'm no expert, but what I do know is that Gen 6 has my favorite shiny sparkles in the franchise. I was kind of bummed when I found my first shiny in Pokemon Sun and Moon, only to realize that they changed the shiny sparkles that I know and loved into a big star. Don't get me wrong, that didn't stop me from shiny hunting or anything, but it definitely bummed me out. One of the main reasons I'm playing through this game is because I want to get the Shiny Charm. The Generation 6 games are the hardest in the franchise to get the Shiny Charm in, needing a massive 721 Pokemon. I do have a complete save file of Pokemon X and Y, which I can trade stuff over if needed, but if this video does well enough, I'll definitely consider doing a video just like it for the Kalos games too. Anyways, that's about it for my Shiny rant. Let's hop into the items and wild Pokemon. First, I grab a hidden super potion by this ledge, followed by an ether and these chesto berries. Then we can hop over to collect a repel and a potion. The first new wild Pokemon I encounter is a Nincada, which I always forget is part ground type. Nincada lives underground for many years in complete darkness. This Pokemon absorbs nutrients from the roots of trees. It stays motionless as it waits for evolution. Living in complete darkness for years sounds pretty sad. Hopefully you'll evolve soon, Nincada. Next, I find the very pink Skitty. Skitty has the habit of becoming fascinated by moving objects and chasing them around. This Pokemon is known to chase after its own tail to become dizzy. Honestly, not too different from a real cat. Very realistic dex entry. Lastly is Whismur, and this guy's dex entry kind of shocked me. Normally, Whismur's voice is very quiet. It is barely audible even if one is paying close attention. However, if this Pokemon senses danger, it starts crying at an ear-splitting volume. This is the definition of unexpected. I know Exploud and Loudred are supposed to be, well, loud, but Whismur crying at an ear-splitting volume sounds awful. Regardless, at the end of this route, we can grab an X special attack before Mr. Briny tells us that his poor Pico has been kidnapped. Inside Rusturf Tunnel, we can pick up a Dire Hit and a Pokeball before challenging the Magma Grunt to a fight. He's pretty weak with his Poochyena, so Flaffy can take it down easily. Upon defeat, he hands over the Devon parts along with Mr. Briny's Wingull. Then, back in Rustboro, we can return the goods, and Mr. Stone tasks us with bringing some letter to a guy named Steven over in Dewford. I head south where we can use Cut to pick up some more items. A Revive, a Tiny Mushroom, a Miracle Seed, a Great Ball, and an X attack. Mr. Briny conveniently has a boat, so as thanks for rescuing his Wingull, he takes us over to Dewford Town. The first thing I do here is pick up the Silk Scarf from this Ace Trainer and then collect the Old Rod. There's two Pokemon we can reel in here, and the first one of them is Magikarp. Magikarp is a pathetic excuse for a Pokemon that is only capable of flopping and splashing. This behavior prompted scientists to undertake research into it. I know Magikarp is a bad Pokemon, but I didn't expect the Dex entry to call it pathetic. Poor guy. Next, we can head east and pick up a Super Repel before reeling in the second Pokemon here, a Tentacool. Tentacool's body is largely composed of water. If it is removed from the sea, it dries up like parchment. If this Pokemon happens to become dehydrated, put it back into the sea. I mean, this kind of makes sense, like obviously you don't want to take aquatic Pokemon out of the water, but how else are you going to use it in battle? Anyways, it's time to challenge the second gym leader, Brawly. Well, technically there are some gym trainers, but again, they aren't worth mentioning, so we'll skip right ahead to the gym leader. Brawly leads Machop, but Princess can take him out and the following Makuhita with a single Scald, continuing the Milotic sweep from Gym 1. For our troubles, we are rewarded with the Knuckle badge, and now all Pokemon up to level 30 will listen to us without question. With 2 badges in hand, it's time to make some more progress. Route 106 has just a few trainers and items to collect, but no new Pokemon. Fisherman Ned has a Tentacool, but a couple Scalds from Princess is more than enough to take it down. Next up is Fisherman Elliot, who leads Magikarp. Milotic can take it down with the Scald, and then I send in Flaffy to deal with the Tentacool. Last is Backpacker Grammy, who boasts a single Slakoth, and a Scald is more than enough to take it down. I then make my way back through the route to collect all the items. A Protein, a Pokeball, a Stardust, and a Heart Scale. Granite Cave has a plethora of items, but we can't access most of them until we have the Mach Bike. So for now, we grab the Flash TM from a hiker and start catching some Pokemon. There's 4 new ones to collect, and the first is Makuhita. Makuhita is tenacious. It will keep getting up and attacking its foe however many times it is knocked down. Every time it gets back up, this Pokemon stores more energy in its body for evolving. This is actually a really cool dex entry to me because I kind of assumed Makuhita would be a pushover, but after reading this, I was definitely wrong. The next encounter I find is a little yellow Abra. Abra sleeps 18 hours a day, however, it can sense the presence of foes even while sleeping. In such a situation, this Pokemon immediately teleports to safety. 18 hours of sleep per day is crazy. Third on the list is Zubat. Zubat remains quietly unmoving in a dark spot during the bright daylight hours. It does so because prolonged exposure to the sun causes its body to become slightly burned. I would like to take this time to apologize to all my former Zubats because they have definitely been sent out a lot during daylight hours. The last Pokemon is a 5% Geodude encounter, which takes a while, but eventually we're able to grab one. The longer Geodude lives, the more its edges are chipped and worn away, making it more rounded in appearance. However, this Pokemon's heart will remain hard, craggy, and rough always. This makes me think there are some Geodudes out there that are square-shaped, which would honestly be really funny. Regardless, we can now make our way into Steven's room. He tells us some interesting things about the markings on the wall, and then says we might have what it takes to become the Pokemon League champion. Oh, and he also gives us the Steel Wing TM. Cool, I guess. Next, we need to make our way to the beach or Route 109. My introduction to the Pokemon franchise started when I was just a little kid, which is likely true for some of you watching. But I'm only 22 years old, so I didn't grow up with stuff like Pokemon Emerald or Fire Red. Instead, my first region was Johto, specifically Pokemon Heart Gold on the Nintendo DS. I had a friend growing up, and one day when I was over at his house, he was showing me his copy of Pokemon Diamond. He handed me his DS, and I remember running into an Abomasnow and using his Infernape's Flare Blitz to KO it. So that night, I went home and begged my mom to let me get a DS and a Pokemon game. At the time, I didn't know there were different Pokemon games. All I knew is that he was playing Pokemon and I wanted that too. So the very next day, my mom and I walked into a GameStop and we bought a used Golden Legend of Zelda DS and a copy of Pokemon Heart Gold. I went home, booted up the game, and had no idea what I was doing. Obviously, I don't remember every little detail, but I do know that Cyndaquil was my starter. I then happily made my way through the game and eventually found myself in Violet City, but I was stuck. For some reason, I couldn't get into Falconer's gym. I didn't know I needed to go to Sprout Tower first, so I just assumed that the reason was because my Pokemon was too low level. I ended up training him all the way to level 20 before finally asking my babysitter for some help. Basically, he did a quick Google search and let me know that I need to take on Sprout Tower before I can head to the gym. But as far as my first playthrough, that's really all I remember other than getting really stuck in Claire's gym. That puzzle even had my babysitter struggling. Anyways, I know this is a Hoenn video, but I wanted to tell you guys a little bit about myself as we go through this region. Alright, now let's go through and collect the items and hidden items here on the beach, which by the way was really hard to find all of these without the item finder. Here I'm able to grab a Revive, the Soft Sand, an Ether, a Heart Scale, another Heart Scale, a Great Ball, and a PP Up. With that, Route 109 is complete, and since there are no new Pokemon here, let's head up to Slateport City. In the market, we can grab the Alakazite before heading north to the fan club where a nice lady hands us a Soothe Bell. I then proceed to spend almost all of my money in the Pokemart because there's a cool little Easter egg in the museum. If you try and enter but can't afford the $50 entrance fee, the lady will assume you're with Team Magma and tell you to go and catch up with them, which I think is really funny. There's also a grunt on the right that will give you the Thief TM, so I'll make sure to grab that too. Upstairs, there's two Magma Grunts who challenge us to a battle, the first of which has a Numel who falls to 2 tackles from Flaffy. The second leads Zubat, which falls to a single Thunderbolt, and then sends a Numel who falls to a single Scald. Once defeated, Team Magma's leader Maxie introduces himself, but I don't know. He just doesn't feel as threatening as some of the other evil team leaders to me. I try to leave the city, but some girl named Alicia is in town and apparently wants us to do some contest hall stuff. But don't worry, I'm not going to be doing any of that. I do, however, head inside and talk to the sailor to collect the Torment TM. Route 110 is next in line, so let's take care of these trainers. This video is kind of an experiment on what kind of content people enjoy and what kind of content I enjoy making, so I'm going to tell you guys a story of my first ever shiny Pokemon while we fight these trainers. So I've been shiny hunting long before I ever made a YouTube video. The first time I ever wanted or cared to catch a shiny Pokemon was when my brother found a full odd shiny Tentacle in Pokemon Y. I was so jealous and I needed to get my hand on one. So I attempted to use the radar in my copy of Pokemon X. I failed pretty badly, and to this day I don't fully understand it, but somehow I ended up encountering a shiny Gothita. Now, I was excited to have this cool shiny, but a Gothita of all things was kind of underwhelming. And if you were anything like me back in 2013, you were accepting all sorts of trade requests from random people. Most of them would just flex their totally legit shiny Pokemon. Like, I remember this one guy had a shiny Volcanion, which looked super cool, but obviously he did not trade it to me. Eventually, I did run into a person that offered up a shiny Pokemon, a shiny Kecleon. I put up my Gothita and he actually accepted the trade. I was super excited about this shiny. Looking back, I don't really know why though. It was level 100 and almost definitely hacked. But what I did know is that anything was better than my little Gothita. I wish I could say that I still had the save file today, but obviously I do not. As stated in the beginning of this video, the whole point is, well, to stop resetting my old save files. If either Kecleon or Gothita are in the game and huntable by DexNav, I will 100% try my luck at getting one or both of them, because I actually have neither in my collection. Anyways, that's the story of my first shiny and how I basically threw it away like a piece of trash. Also, I would really appreciate any sort of feedback on this video. Let me know what you liked, what you would change, or maybe something you would like to see more of. For example, I kept the bottom screen out of this video because I didn't want to crop the gameplay, but I'm sure some people might prefer it if they could see it. Anyways, let's hop into the items. Thanks to the win against our rival, we now have the dowsing machine, which will make item collection a lot easier. Retracing our steps, we're able to grab some Lepa berries, a Pokeball, a Revive, a Great Ball, a full heal, and a Dire Hit. And as far as Pokemon go, there are quite a few new ones available to us. The first of which is a little Minun. Minun is more concerned about cheering on its partners than its own safety. It shorts out the electricity in its body to create brilliant showers of sparks to cheer on its teammates. Minun is actually such a selfless Pokemon, and it really makes me want to shiny hunt one of these guys. Next up, I encounter a very round Voltorb. Voltorb was first sighted at a company that manufactures Pokeballs. The link between that sighting and the fact that this Pokemon looks very similar to a Pokeball remains a mystery. It's honestly surprising to me that there's no update to its lore, especially considering this Pokemon was part of the original 151. Third, I encounter another Gen 1 staple being Oddish. During the daytime, Oddish buries itself in soil to absorb nutrients from the ground using its entire body. The more fertile soil, the glossier its leaves become. Oddish is such a simple creature, and I can't help but love it. Next up is the Pokemon whose name I forgot. Virtually all of Gulpin's body is its stomach. As a result, it can swallow something its own size. This Pokemon's stomach contains a special fluid that digests anything. The fact that this Pokemon could digest something like a metal pipe is insane to me. The last Pokemon I find here is Electrike, which is kind of weird because it has the highest encounter rate, but oh well. Electrike stores electricity in its long body hair. This Pokemon simulates its leg muscles with electric charges. These jolts of power give its legs explosive acceleration performance. That's a pretty bold claim for a Pokemon with the same speed stat as Smoochum. Before heading into Mauville, we need to make a quick stop by Route 103. This Aroma Lady has a single Roselia who Neptune can easily take down. Second is twins Amy and Liv, who both fall to the combined efforts from Flaffy and Nidorino. Third is Pokefan Miguel, whose Skitty is no match for Neptune. And last is Fisherman Andrew, who only has 2 Magikarps, so they aren't really a threat to us. There's no new Pokemon to catch here, so all we need to do is grab these items: a Guard Spec, some Chesto Berries, and Lepa Berries. With that complete, it's time to take on the biggest section yet, Mauville City. All we really need to do before challenging the gym though is collect all the items, so here they are: an X Speed, a Globe, an X Defense, the Mach Bike, the VS Recorder, the TM for Round, Dolls for the starter Pokemon, a Nugget, a Luxury Ball, a Max Repel, a Poketoy, and a Metronome. Wally is guarding the gym, but his singular Ralts is no threat to our overleveled team. Finally, it's time for the gym, and yet again, we're going to skip the trainers here, but I will say that Watson is absolutely posted up right here. First is Magnemite, which gets burnt to a crisp by our Ninetales. Second is Voltorb, who easily gets taken down by a dig from Nidorino. Also, still waiting for a Moonstone. Hopefully we can evolve this guy soon. Last is Magneton, who falls to a single dig, earning us the 3rd gym badge and ensuring we shouldn't have any more Pokemon disobedience problems again. Now, with Mauville complete, it's time to head right to Route 117. There are a few trainers here, so it's time for another story. This time, I want to talk about my personal struggles with comparison. I constantly find myself looking at other YouTube channels and wondering why I'm not doing as well as them. But in reality, some of these YouTubers have been making content for years with hundreds of videos. And as of right now, I only have 12 videos on my channel, so who am I to compare myself to them? In reality, you will never be the best at anything. There will always be someone better than you no matter what you do, but that's okay. Comparing yourself to other people can only lead you down one of two paths, but both paths are bad. Path 1 is where you look at someone else and think that you'll never be as good as them, and that path can lead to depression and even quitting. Option 2 is where you look at someone else and think that you're so much better than them. While it's okay to be proud of what you've done, I don't think there's ever a time when you should look down on someone else for not being as good as you. You don't know what they've been through or sacrificed to get to where they are today. This goes both ways too. You can't really know what someone else has been through, just like they don't know exactly what you've been through either. All of this to say, I've been trying to stay out of the numbers recently. It's so easy for me to keep checking the views, likes, and comments on my videos. And in reality, there are a lot of super nice people that enjoy my content and let me know that in the comments too. So even if just one of you is struggling out there, or maybe even considering giving up on whatever goal you're working towards, take a second and look back. Look at how far you've come. You've put in so much work, and in the end, only you can achieve your goals. No one else can do that for you. Right now, my goal is to make the best YouTube videos that I possibly can. It's something that I'm passionate about and absolutely love doing. So no matter what, I'm going to keep working at it because I know that one day it's all going to pay off. So right now, maybe you're asleep, maybe you're following along catching the Pokemon, or maybe you're studying and you have this on in the background. Regardless, you specifically have helped me get one step closer to doing what I love. So thank you. Alright, sorry for getting a little bit deep for a second there, but now it's time to collect some items. I backtracked to the beginning of the route to collect some pineapple berries, a revive, and a great ball. As far as Pokemon, there's actually quite a few, so let's get to catching. My first encounter is a Goldeen. Goldeen is a very beautiful Pokemon with fins that billow elegantly in water. However, don't let your guard down around this Pokemon. It could ram you powerfully with its horn. I wish Goldeen and Seeking had better stats because I low-key really like this line. My second encounter is a Marill. Marill's oil-filled tail acts much like a life preserver. If you see its tail bobbing on the water's surface, it's a sure indication that this Pokemon is diving beneath the water to feed on aquatic plants. I can just imagine some Marills bobbing in the water while I'm at the beach, which would honestly be really cute. Next up is Illumise. Illumise attracts a swarm of Volbeat using a sweet fragrance. Once the Volbeat gathered, this Pokemon leads the lit up swarm in drawing geometric designs on the canvas of the night sky. This is really cool. Having Volbeat and Illumise fly around in the sky lighting it up seems so interesting and would definitely be something I would stick around to watch. Fourth is Roselia. Roselia shoots sharp thorns as projectiles at any opponent that tries to steal the flowers on its arms. The aroma of this Pokemon brings serenity to living things. Well, I definitely would not be getting near this thing's roses. Ouch. The last Pokemon here is a Volbeat. With the arrival of night, Volbeat emits light from its tail. It communicates with others by adjusting the intensity and flashing of its light. This Pokemon is attracted by the sweet aroma of Illumise. This obviously goes hand in hand with its counterpart, but I find the way it communicates to be pretty cool. With Route 117 complete, we arrive in Verdant Turf Town, and the only thing to do here is grab some important items. The Mawilite, a Repel, the Attractium, and an intriguing stone. Next, we take a quick trip back to Rust Turf Tunnel. We can take the first exit to collect an HP up in the black glasses, and back inside we can collect a max ether and the Agronite. Oh, and this guy will also give you a repeat ball if you're interested. With those complete, it's time to head north to Route 111. On the left, there's a family of 4 we need to take on called the Windstraits. First is Victor, whose Tailo falls to an Ice Beam, and Zigzagoon falls to a Scald. And thanks to the EXP share, our Flaffy evolves into an Ampharos. Second is Victoria, and her Roselia falls to an Ice Beam from Milotic. Third is Vivi, and Milotic continues the sweep by taking out all 3 of her Pokemon. Last is Vicky, and her Meditite easily gets taken down with a single Scald. Upon defeat, you can head in the house and they'll reward you with the Macho Brace, which is kind of cool. Moving on to Route 112, we have a ton of trainers. But this time, I'm going to tell you guys a story about the worst shiny fail that I've ever had, and genuinely still haunts me to this day. This takes place in some of my favorite Pokemon games, being Ultra Sun and Moon, and I spent a ton of time catching Pokemon, breeding, and transferring up from old games because I wanted the shiny charm so bad. Alola has my favorite method hunt, which is SOS calling, but that's not how I hunted this Pokemon. I wanted to try my luck at a good old-fashioned soft reset hunt. So I hopped into the Ultra Warp Ride and rode on my Lunala until I came across a green wormhole. Inside was an iconic legendary Pokemon, maybe even the most iconic in the entire franchise, Mewtwo. So I got my rubber bands on my DS, pulled out a calculator to keep track of the encounters, and started resetting. I wasn't expecting to see anything for at least a few hundred encounters, but literally on my 51st encounter, a green Mewtwo appeared on my screen and I started freaking out. An insanely lucky encounter, only 51 resets in. I was overjoyed, but my team wasn't that high level. Not to the point where I was worried, but I brought my standard Elite 4 team, which were all around level 60, the same as Mewtwo. For some reason, I wanted to get a clean switch into my False Swipe Pokemon. So you know what I did? I swapped into my Galissopod, thinking to myself, oh, this is perfect. Mewtwo will put me into emergency exit range and I'll get a free switch into a new Pokemon. Well, fun fact, emergency exit does not work the same way in wild battles as it does in trainer battles. This Mewtwo put my Galissopod below half HP, activating the emergency exit ability, and with that, making me flee the battle. This was a truly heartbreaking moment for me, my joy taken away in an instant, and even worse, it was all my fault. But you know what? I needed to reclaim this thing, and I needed to do it fast. The pain from this fail kept eating away at me, and I knew if I didn't reclaim it, it would continue to haunt me. So I started pulling some no-life gaming hours. I'm talking 12 hours of resets per day, and well, I ended up going almost triple odds for this thing at 3,600 encounters before it finally shined. And my reaction wasn't filled with the same excitement as the first, but instead a sigh of relief. I was free from the trap that was resetting for hours and hours on end, just to reclaim a Pokemon that I had already hunted. And as soon as I found that Mewtwo, I immediately threw my Master Ball at it. I didn't want to take a single risk, and if you've ever reclaimed a shiny Pokemon, you may be able to relate to this. But I can guarantee you one thing, and it's that I will never make that same mistake again. That Mewtwo is still sitting in my copy of Ultra Moon, and I don't ever plan on moving it up to home. And what makes all of this even better is that I'm currently shiny hunting every Gen 1 shiny Pokemon, and if you're at all familiar with my other videos, then you likely already know that. But what that means is that I'm going to have to hunt another shiny Mewtwo, and I can only hope that it goes faster than my first one. Anyways, that's my shiny fail story, but let's hop into the Pokemon. So for this, I'm going to be combining Route 112 and Fiery Path since there's nothing we can do in Fiery Path right now other than catch some Pokemon. First up, I encounter a blue Machop. Machop's muscles are special. They never get sore no matter how much they are used in exercise. This Pokemon has sufficient power to hurl 100 adult humans. By the way, Machop is 2'7", so seeing this thing hurl 100 humans would be nuts. Next up is the Fire Ground type Pokemon Numel. Numel is extremely dull-witted. It doesn't notice being hit. However, it can't stand hunger even for a second. This Pokemon's body is a seething cauldron of boiling magma. Poor Numel, he just wants to eat and chill. Moving into Fiery Path is Coughing. If Coughing becomes agitated, it raises the toxicity of its internal gases and jets them out all over its body. This Pokemon may also overinflate its round body, then explode. Overinflate and explode? Actually, yeah, that checks out. Next up is everyone's favorite purple Pokemon, Grimer. Grimer's sludgy and rubbery body can be forced through any opening, however small it may be. This Pokemon enters sewers to drink filthy wastewater. Grimer's body is rubbery? Okay, I was definitely not expecting that. Fifth is the Gen 3 staple Torkoal. Torkoal digs through mountains in search of coal. If it finds some, it fills hollow spaces on its shell with the coal and burns it. If it is attacked, this Pokemon spouts thick black smoke to beat a retreat. How does this turtle dig through mountains? Like what? Anyways, there's only one Pokemon left, and does anyone know what this thing is called? Molten magma courses throughout Slugma's circulatory system. If this Pokemon is chilled, the magma cools and hardens. Its body turns brittle and chunks fall off, reducing its size. I like to think that if Slugma does get chilled, its body turns gray and into its shiny colors. That completes all of the new Pokemon, so we're moving back to Route 111. Just outside is an Ace Trainer, but my Loda can take care of his Electrike, Bagon, and Makuhita. Above that, we're introduced to secret bases, which is something I never spent any time doing the first time that I played this game. So this time, I'm going to spend a few minutes here building a little base. It isn't much, but we don't have access to that many items right now. So every once in a while, we'll drop back by this base and update it as we continue our journey through the Hoenn region. There's still a few more trainers on the route, so let's take care of them. Cece's Spoink falls to a Scald, and so does her Mawile. Next is Dion, who just has a Linoon and also falls to a Scald. Last is Brooke, an iconic trainer from the Gen 3 games, but her team is no match for my Lodic. Okay, I promise I'll start using some of the other Pokemon soon, I just really like my Lodic shiny. There's only a couple of items to grab here, which is just an elixir and some berries. I make my way east to Route 113 where a ton of trainers await me, so here's a quick montage of me taking them all down. Okay, with those out of the way, let's go back and collect all of the items. An elixir, a super repel, the double team TM, a max ether, a nugget, the suit sack, and a hyper potion. And now we get to collect 3 brand new Pokemon. First up, I get super lucky and find the 5% encounter Skarmory. Skarmory is entirely encased in hard protective armor. This Pokemon flies close to 190 miles per hour. It slashes foes with its wings that possesses sword-like cutting edges. Now I'm really curious what Skarmory looks like under its protective armor. Second is the very cute Pokemon Sandshrew. Sandshrew's body is configured to absorb water without waste, enabling it to survive in an arid desert. This Pokemon curls up to protect itself from its enemies. Sandshrew is really underappreciated in my opinion and is easily one of the best designed Pokemon from Generation 1. Finally, we get to Spinda. All the Spinda that exist in the world are said to have utterly unique spot patterns. The shaky, tottering steps of the Pokemon give it the appearance of dancing. Spinda, I wish you had slightly usable stats because I low-key would use you on the team. Anyways, we're moving into Fall Arbor Town where we can pick up some new items, being a nugget, honey, and the berry blender. Left of here is Route 114, which guards Meteor Falls. This time, I want to talk to you guys about my future plans for this channel and what type of content you can expect from me going forward. First, I definitely want to keep the Shiny Living Dex series on the channel, and it'll probably take a couple years, but I think it would be super cool to be the first person on YouTube to have a fully documented Shiny Living Dex. I've probably caught over 1,000 shinies since I started hunting all the way back in 2013, but again, I want each and every reaction and shiny to be documented. Secondly, if this video does well, I also would love to make this a series on the channel too. I assume there would be about 3 hour-long videos going through the game and catching Pokemon just like this, and maybe an extra video for completing the decks with the mons unavailable in the games that would need to be traded or transferred up. I think having 2 ongoing series would be best for the channel here because I really struggled with burnout in the past. For example, the first 2 Shiny Living Dex videos totaling to 60 shinies were all caught within a 2-week span, and during those 2 weeks I probably spent about 15 to 20 hours editing each one of those videos too. I'm not complaining about that or anything because I actually really enjoy editing my own videos, but after those 2, I was not ready to go straight into shiny hunting part 3 of the Shiny Living Dex. Anyways, I know I'm kind of rambling here, but the support on the channel has been insane recently with some of the videos videos reaching over 10,000 views, which really means the world to me. If you're enjoying this video and want to see part 2 of the Forever Save series, subscribing to the channel is a really good way to let me know that you like the content here, and it's completely free. So if you end up not liking the content later on, you can always come back and unsubscribe later. Route 114 actually has quite a few items that we need to pick up. The Dig TM, the TM for Roar, a Revive, some Aspir Berries, a C-Dot Doll, a Carbos, a Protein, a Comet Shard, and an Energy Powder. With those collected, let's jump into the new Pokemon. First is Swablu, but since I already have one that I traded up, we will not get the new Dex entry on screen. So we will jump right into the next Pokemon, which is Nuzleaf. Nuzleaf live in densely overgrown forests. They occasionally venture out of the forest to startle people. This Pokemon dislikes having its long nose pinched. I wonder how they discovered this. Someone must have literally gone up to Nuzleaf and just decided to pinch its nose. Last is the Pokemon Omega Ruby exclusive Zangoose. Memories of battling its arch-rival Survivor are etched into every cell of Zangoose's body. This Pokemon adroitly dodges attacks with incredible agility. I know Zangoose and Survivor are rivals, but man, these guys must have some insane beef. With that done, there's some dialogue in Mount Moon about a meteorite or something before we get challenged to a double battle with our rival. It's pretty free, so we're able to win in just a few turns. But more importantly, there are some new items to grab here, the Full Heal and a Moonstone. I of course immediately feed this to our Nidorino, who finally evolves into a Nidoking. The only new Pokemon we can grab here is a Solrock. Solrock is a new species of Pokemon that is said to have fallen from space. It floats in air and moves silently. In battle, this Pokemon releases intensely bright light. I find it interesting that in the game, Solrock doesn't actually give off this super bright light that its description talks about, but it also kind of makes sense because I'm sure that would be super hard to look at. Just south of here is Route 115, which has 3 super easy trainers. Black Belt Knob with a Machop, Collector Hector with the Survivor, and Battle Girl Cindy with a Meditite. I then make my way to the beach to collect a hidden Heart Scale, a Great Ball, some Weeper Berries, and a Zinc. There's no new Pokemon for us to collect here, so it's off to Mount Chimney. Tabitha has a Coughing that falls to a Nidoking, and then a Numel who easily falls to Glaceon. Last is Maxie, who we are just way too overleveled for. So Mightyena falls to a Poison Jab, Camerupt falls to a Dig, and Golbat falls to an Ice Beam. For our win, we're rewarded with a Swablu evolution who promptly evolves into an Altaria. Maxie then reluctantly hands us the Meteorite, and item-wise we can collect the Incinerate TM, a Zinc, and a Protein. Next up is Jagged Pass, and oh boy is there a lot here. First things first, I need to go swap my Mach Bike for the Acro Bike, but I will briefly touch on something while we do these trainers. Does anyone else get like super hyper fixated on a game? Like, I'm talking you're so excited to play it that you're waking up early even on days that you don't have to. Well, I certainly do, but it's pretty rare for me to find a game that addictive and fun. But sometimes it does. Whenever a new Pokemon game releases, this definitely applies for the first few days. Also, seasons 3, 4, and 5 of Fortnite for me were super grindy. But recently, I've been playing a ton of Palia. It's such a chill game, but can also be pretty grindy if you want it to be. And me personally, I really love grindy games. Stuff where you can fish for super rare things, and hunt for insanely low odds items. Kinda like shiny hunting. Who would have thought? Anyways, this isn't sponsored or anything, as my channel is way too small for sponsors, but I will take these few seconds to ask you to subscribe again. Anyways, I only play a few hours a day right now, but I'm really loving going around and grinding resources and doing quests in that game. Anyways, let's get back to Pokemon. There are a lot of items here, and you will need the Acrobike to get all of them. The Flame Charge TM, a Super Repel, the Rock Polish TM, a Full Heal, another Full Heal, a Great Ball, a Max Ether, and an X Defense. Once complete, we can head into the grass and collect the one new Pokemon available here, Spoink. Spoink bounces around on its tail. The shock of its bouncing makes its heart pump. As a result, this Pokemon cannot afford to stop bouncing. If it stops, its heart will stop. Wow, that's actually a really dark dex entry. Hopefully you evolve soon, Spoink. With that, we finally arrive in Lava Ridge Town, where we can collect the Swords Dance TM, an Ice Heal, and a Charcoal. Oh, and the Why Not Egg too. I picked up this egg thinking I would just need to ride back and forth for maybe 10 to 15 minutes. But no, almost 45 minutes of riding this bike and this thing finally hatches into a why not. I do not recommend hatching this thing without flame body. And yes, I know I had a Slugma with flame body in the PC, I just kind of forgot about it at the time, so my bad. Now it's time to head inside the Lava Ridge gym, which looks a lot different from its design back in Generation 3. There's a ton of trainers here, but as usual, we will skip past them and right to the gym leader herself, Flannery. She leads Slugma, and I send out the MVP of this run, my Lodic. A single Scald is then enough to take it down, along with her Numel and her Torkoal. Just outside of the gym, Brendan rewards us with the Go Goggles, giving us access to the Route 111 Desert, where there is a lot of new items and Pokemon to collect. But first, we need to take care of the trainers. So far, I've really enjoyed my journey through the Hoenn region. As stated at the beginning of this video, it's been a pretty long time since I've actually set foot here. The Pokédex in this game is one of my all-time favorites, having some iconic staples like Wurmple, Mudkip, and Hariyama to name a few. ORAS gets a lot of hate for being a bad game or not living up to the remake expectation that people wanted. However, I think this Pokemon game not only succeeded in reimagining the original games, but I believe that it actually exceeded expectations, at least for me personally. The cutscenes are very clean, the graphics are some of my favorites, and we haven't got there yet, but being able to fly around on Mega Latios is such a cool feature added to this game. Speaking of features added, there are a ton of other great ones. First, the Dex Nav, which I think is genuinely a really cool way to not only hunt shinies, but to get egg moves and hidden abilities without the hassle of breeding and trading. Then of course is Horde encounters, which were introduced in Pokemon X and Y, but these games are still part of the same generation, so I would consider it a new feature to the games here too. I've seen so many people talk about how horde hunting with the shiny charm brings in a ton of shinies, yet I've never gotten to experience that for myself as I'm still missing the shiny charm. I do of course plan on completing the Pokédex in these games to get it, and part of the reason for this series in general is to be able to hunt the shinies a lot easier for the Living Dex series, which of course if you haven't checked that out, make sure you do. Touching more on some of the features in this remake, I want to cover the secret bases in this game. I didn't spend much time originally with them, but after checking Bulbapedia, there are some really cool secret base items and a ton of interesting ways to collect them. It really goes to show that these games were made with a lot of attention to detail, and I really appreciate that. There are so many features put into Pokemon games that the average person completely skips over. For example, the contest halls, the Pokeathlon Dome in Heart Gold, Pokestar Studios in Unova, and most of the endgame content like Battle Trees, Battle Subway, and Battle Frontier. The standard way to play Pokemon is to run through the game, take down the Elite Four, and call it a day for the save file. And while there's nothing wrong with that, it's just not how I prefer to play these games, and I want to take some time to appreciate the smaller things that are usually overlooked. Anyways, let's hop into the items. Here we make sure to collect a Stardust, a second Stardust, the Root Fossil, a Revive, a PP Up, a Protein, a Rare Candy, the Safety Goggles, and the TM for Sandstorm. There are also 3 new Pokemon to collect here, which is pretty exciting, and first up is Trapinch. Trapinch's nest is a sloped, bowl-like pit dug in sand. This Pokemon patiently waits for prey to tumble down the pit. Its giant jaws have enough strength to crush even boulders. By the way, Trapinch has a base attack stat of 100, which is kind of insane for a stage 1 Pokemon. Next up is Cacnea. Cacnea lives in arid locations such as deserts. It releases a strong aroma from its flower to attract prey. When prey come near, this Pokemon shoots sharp thorns from its body to bring the victim down. I always thought that thing on Cacnea's head was a crown, but I guess that was just me. Anyways, the final Pokemon here is Baltoy. Baltoy moves while spinning around on its one foot. Primitive wall paintings depict this Pokemon living among people were discovered in some ancient ruins. Then I make my way all the way back to Petalburg, where we're going to challenge the 5th gym leader, Norman. For most, Norman is one of, if not the most challenging gym leader in the game. He has 2 Slackings with insanely high base stat totals on par with even legendaries. But they're just no match for my over-leveled shiny team. And by that I mean specifically my Glaceon. he gets a clutch critical hit with Ice Beam to take down the first Slacking in a single hit. Next up is Vigoroth, who also easily falls to an Ice Beam. Then is the final Slacking, who falls to 2 Ice Beams, giving Glaceon the sweep and earning us badge number 5. Our dad is torn between being happy or sad after his defeat, and eventually rewards us with the TM for Retaliate. We then make our way east of Mauville to take on Route 118. As I take on these trainers, I'm at peace. Sometimes video games are the best thing to take your mind off of the worries and stress of life, and some people may say that that is a bad thing. And while it can be bad, that doesn't mean it has to be. Pokemon specifically has helped me get through some hard times in my life. Sometimes I feel alone, sometimes I feel stressed, maybe even worried about the future. But even so, I've always been able to find some sort of comfort in Pokemon. Sometimes I'm shiny hunting, sometimes I'm playing through a new save file, and sometimes I get on my bike and ride around through the region. It's never failed to help me through some rough patches. Maybe you're struggling right now. Maybe you're worried about a job or an upcoming test. Just take a deep breath. Stressing about it will only make it worse. Just do the best you can and keep moving. It's all going to work out. As I approach the end of this route, Steven is waiting for me. After a quick chat, Latias comes down and gives us a ride over to Southern Island. Here, we're challenged by 2 Team Magma members, but thanks to Milotic's newly learned Surf, we're able to win the battle in just 1 turn. Once defeated, Latios is waiting for us and insists on joining our team. Here, we also get our hands on the Mega Bracelet and the Latiosite, which is absolutely insane. If you were worried about my team being too overpowered, just remember you get a Mega Latios after the 5th gym. Anyways, Latias drops us back at Route 118 and it's time to collect the items here. A Hard Scale, a Stardust, the Good Rod, an Iron, some Citrus Berries, and a Hyper Potion. And as far as new Pokemon go, we'll start with Kecleon. Kecleon is capable of changing its body colors at will to blend in with its surroundings. There is one exception. This Pokemon can't change the zigzag pattern on its belly. Honestly, I did not know that about Kecleon. The zigzag always being present is actually kind of cool. After a few more encounters, we run into a Pelipper. Pelipper is a flying transporter that carries small Pokemon and eggs inside its massive bill. This Pokemon builds its nest on steep cliffs facing the sea. For some reason, I didn't expect Pelipper to have a nest. It makes sense though, but they are pretty big birds. Third is Lanoon. Lanoon always runs full speed and only in straight lines. If facing an obstacle, it makes a right angle turn to evade it. This Pokemon is very challenged by gently curving roads. I feel like this Pokemon could get around easier by making a zigzag pattern or something. I don't know. Anyways, there's only 1 Pokemon left here and it's the 5% fishing encounter Carvana. But while we search for it, let me give you guys my closing thoughts. This video took an insane amount of time to make, so again, a simple like, comment, or subscribe goes a really long way. Also, I feel like I've really gotten to know some of the Pokemon better, and the dex entries here have given me a new appreciation for them. If you made it all the way to the end here, I really want to say thank you so much. It really is my dream to one day do YouTube as my job. So watching this far into the video makes that dream one step closer to becoming a reality. Carvana's strongly developed jaws and its sharply pointed fangs pack the destructive power to rip out boat hulls. Many boats have been attacked and sunk by this Pokemon. We are starting off with one of Hoenn's biggest areas, Route 119. There are a ton of trainers here as usual, so there is no time to waste. If you're new here, I like to tell stories or talk about life during these trainer bits. So to start, we're going to be talking about the time I did a Dream Team quest in Pokemon Alpha Sapphire. And every good Dream Team starts with a Mudkip. What's weird about this story is I was actually hunting all 3 of the starters in ORAS. And the very first one I found was a shiny Trico. For some reason, I hunted it and immediately went back to hunting the other 2. And to this day, I still have a copy of Omega Ruby sitting in its case, and in-game, I'm still sitting in Little Root Town. Never progressed, never even made it to Route 101. But that's not where the story ends. I ended up going over 6,000 soft resets before my Mudkip finally shined, and oh my, was that a great feeling. By the way, that hunt took over 100 hours, and the sad part is that I would probably do it all over again. That was the start of my Dream Team quest, and that very same day, I made my way into Petalburg Woods and started using the DexNav to hunt for my second target, a green Talo. I don't fully understand DexNav shiny odds, but I do know that they boost the chances, and after only about 60 encounters, I found myself the green bird. Interestingly enough, my next Dream Team member required some backtracking to Route 103, where I was looking for a Ralts. I was not as lucky as Talo on this hunt, and I didn't end up tracking my encounters for it, but if I had to guess, I'd say it took around 8 to 10 hours before finally showing up. Anyways, that's the first half of the Dream Team quest I hunted about 3 or 4 years ago, and I'll touch more on the rest of those hunts later. But for now, let's hop into the items, and if you're following along, make sure you swap your bike out with the Acrobike if you were using the Mach bike like me. With that, we can collect a Max Repel, a Full Heal, a Zinc, some Hondu Berries, a Calcium, a PP Max, and an Elixir. As for Pokemon, there are only 3 new ones to grab, and the first I encounter is a Tropius. The bunches of fruit around Tropius's neck are very popular with children. This Pokemon loves fruit and eats it continuously. Apparently, its love for fruit resulted in its own outgrowth of fruit. Loving fruit so much that it literally starts growing on your body is such a flex. You are so cool, Tropius. Next up is the grass poison type Gloom. Gloom releases a foul fragrance from the pistil of its flower. When faced with danger, the stench worsens. If this Pokemon is feeling calm and secure, it does not release its usual stinky aroma. I'm not the biggest Gloom fan out there, but I've always wondered why it has this white stuff drooling out of its mouth. The third and final Pokemon available here is a Feebas. Feebas's fins are ragged and tattered from the start of its life. Because of its shoddy appearance, this Pokemon is largely ignored. It is capable of living in both the sea and rivers. I had no clue Feebas could live in both saltwater and freshwater, although I don't think you can catch them in an ocean in any Pokemon game. Before we can continue towards Fortree, there are some magma grunts blocking our path, and in order to clear that path, we need to head inside of the Weather Institute. There are a few grunts we need to battle, but they are just a warm-up for the fight against Admin Tabitha. In reality, all he has is a camera up, so Glaceon can easily take it down with a single Ice Beam. Afterwards, we are rewarded with the weather Pokemon Castform. Castform's appearance changes with the weather. This Pokemon gained the ability to use the vast power of nature to protect its tiny body. Castform has a pretty cool gimmick. I just wish there was an easier way to change its form. For example, it would be cool if it could change form based on the move that it used. Downstairs, we can talk to this nice lady for a damp rock and a scientist nearby for a rocky helmet. We can now head back outside where our rival is waiting to challenge us to a battle. Unfortunately for him, our team is just way too overleveled, and it's a clean sweep for Glaceon. He rewards us with the Fly HM, which I am so glad to finally have. Before heading into Fortree though, I make sure to collect the remaining items here, being a Max Ether, an Ultra Ball, a Leaf Stone, and some Pomegg Berries. Fortree is such a beautiful city, and I really appreciate that Game Freak took the time to add some of the most interesting cities in the franchise to this game. Here we can collect some items, being a Super Repel, some stairs, the Hidden Power TM, and a Proclamation. Next, we take a very brief stop on Route 120 where Steven hands us a very nifty item called the Devonscope. This allows us to see any hidden Kecleon blocking our path, and there's even one right here on the bridge. Before leaving, he hands us the Sceptile, and now it's time to head back to the Fortree City Gym. Before entering, we do make sure to collect the TM for Grassnot though. I love this gym. It's iconic from the original games, but the details they've added to it here in this game are breathtaking. The wood to match the city theme and the windmills here really tie this thing together. After a few trainer battles, we arrive at the top of the gym to yet another beautiful view where Winona is awaiting our challenge. She leads Swallow and I lead Altaria. She tries setting up double teams, but thankfully our golden bird knows Aerial Ace, making her evasive strategy ineffective. Next up is the mirror matchup, but thanks to our level advantage, Melody is able to get a clean kill with a single Dragon Pulse. Third is Skarmory, so I swap into Pinky to take it down with a Thunderbolt. Her final Pokemon is a Pelipper who doesn't stand a chance against Pinky's quad-effective electric type moves. With Winona taken down, she rewards us with the Feather Badge, and can I just say I love how they made the badges look in this game. They are so clean. Oh, and she gives us the Ruse TM2, which is cool I guess. Now we can head west to Route 120 once again, and this time with the intention of completing it. Jumping back into my Dream Team story from before, I'm going to tell you guys about the final 3 members of that team. This quest was all over the place because I really didn't know what I wanted. I decided I was going to do some horde encounters for Aeron, and that hunt went a little over odds. I eventually ended up finding a Zubat, which is a nice shiny, but not quite what I was looking for. I then decided to make my way back to Petalburg Woods, where I was looking for an orange mushroom, Shroomish to be exact. I started chipping away at encounters using the DexNav method, and after a few short hours of hunting, I actually managed to find one. I was super excited to have him on my team because I like Breloom a lot. With 4 members of the Dream Team quest acquired, I made my way to Mauville City and headed west, where I was in search of a little green plant, Oddish. This hunt was brutal, and it took me over 1,000 encounters using the DexNav, which is insane and probably really unlucky. And what makes it even better is that I played through the entire game keeping it as a Gloom. I was waiting to find a Sunstone to evolve it into a Blossom, but I never ended up finding one, and this freaking shiny Gloom is still sitting in that copy of Alpha Sapphire unevolved. And it's still like level 70 something, so maybe at the end of this series, I'll go back and evolve her. But that takes us to the final hunt of my Dream Team quest, the Fire Ground type Pokemon Numel. I again decided to use the DexNav for this hunt, but this Dream Team quest was very on and off, where I'd find 2 shinies sometimes in a day and then not touch the game for a few months. One day, I decided that I was going to lock in and find the shiny and complete the game so it wouldn't be left sitting in storage forever. So that's exactly what I did, and after about 60 Numel encounters, the shiny showed up. I love that Camerupt, and even used it as a Mega to take down the Elite Four. I'm really happy I never deleted that save and still have it today. And one day I think it would be really cool to attempt a forever save where I also shiny hunt my team. Definitely not something I'm looking to do right now, as that would be very time consuming, but maybe when we get up to something like Scarlet and Violet. Anyways, that's the story of my Dream Team quest in Alpha Sapphire. But now it's time to move on to the items. A rare candy, a revive, a nest ball, the sunny day TM, some Aspir berries, some Weeper berries, some pineapple berries, a zinc, a nugget, a light ball, some nanab berries, some raspberries, some pecha berries, a revive, a full heal, and finally a rare candy. With all of those collected, we're moving on to the Pokemon, and this time there's only 4. First, I encounter the water-type Pokemon Azumarill. Azumarill's long ears are indispensable sensors. By focusing its hearing, this Pokemon can identify what kinds of prey are around, even in rough and fast-running rivers. This really makes me wonder what type of prey Azumarill is looking for. Maybe Magikarp? Anyways, following that is the bug-flying type Masquerain. Masquerain intimidates enemies with the eye-like patterns on its antennas. This Pokemon flaps its 4 wings to freely fly in any direction, even sideways and backwards as if it were a helicopter. I don't know why, but comparing this thing to a helicopter is actually so funny to me. Third here is the Dark-type Pokemon Absol. Every time Absol appears before people, it is followed by a disaster such as an earthquake or a tidal wave. As a result, it came to be known as the Disaster Pokemon. I feel kind of bad for Absol because I assume it's not trying to cause any harm. But if it is, then I retract my previous statement. The final Pokemon here is a 5% fishing encounter Barboach, but I also want to give myself the opportunity to find a shiny from chain fishing. If you've seen the Pokemon X Forever Save video, I'm trading the Octillery from over there to use here for fishing. If you don't know, Octillery has the ability Suction Cups, which ensures you'll always get a bite while fishing. But if you don't have one of these, don't worry. You can use the fossil Pokemon Lileep in this game, which also has the Suction Cups ability. Anyways, I started casting my rod, not expecting to get anything shiny. And well, I was correct, because after about 10 minutes of fishing, I find myself the Barboach. Barboach's sensitive whiskers serve as a superb radar system. This Pokemon hides in mud, leaving only its 2 whiskers exposed while it waits for prey to come along. This really makes me think of this Pokemon as some sort of mud submarine, which is really cool. Route 121 is a nice break from the past few longer routes. And now we're going to talk about a new section I'm introducing called Hoenn Hot Takes. Basically, I'm going to share some of my unpopular opinions or hot takes, and just hear me out on some of these before clicking off the video. My first hot take is that I'm not a huge fan of Groudon. I don't hate it, and yes, I'm aware that I'm playing Omega Ruby and not Alpha Sapphire, but I feel like it's one of the weaker legendaries. Not stat-wise, just design-wise. I like Kyogre, and everyone loves Rayquaza, but Groudon, again, I don't hate it, but there are just some other legendaries that I prefer over it. Moving on to hot take number 2 is that I really like Huntail and Gorbis. These are more so underappreciated than a hot take, but these are more so underappreciated than a hot take, but it's my video so it stays in. These Pokemon are unreasonably difficult to obtain, and that's probably why they're so forgettable. First, Clamperl is found underwater in an optional route, so most players probably never even encounter one. And 2, you need an extremely specific item in order to evolve them, Huntail needing the Deep Sea Tooth and Gorbis needing the Deep Sea Scale. Gorbis is my preferred choice between the two, and I think it is such a well-designed Pokemon, and it even falls in my top 3 favorite water types of all time. In Ultra Sun and Moon, I decided to shiny hunt one via my favorite method, SOS calling, and I then ended up playing through all of Alola with one and still have it on that copy today. I don't know if any of you do this, but whenever I beat the Elite Four in a Pokemon game, I make a separate box in the PC and title it Team. I only started doing this a few years ago, but I don't ever plan on transferring up my main teams from any game. For example, my Alpha Sapphire Dream Team quest that I spoke on earlier will never leave that game. There's something special about keeping them in these games, at least to me, so next time you put your Pokemon game away, I encourage you to make a special box for that team you bonded with over your journey through the region. Anyways, we can now move on to the items now that the trainers are done. Some Aspire Berries, some Prism Berries, some Rost Berries, an HP Up, a Zinc, a Max Repel, a Carbos, a Shiny Stone, a Nugget, a Full Heal, a Max Revive, and some Nanab Berries. With that, we can run around in the grass until we find the single new Pokemon here, a Shuppet. Shuppet is attracted by feelings of jealousy and vindictiveness. If someone develops strong feelings of vengeance, this Pokemon will appear in a swarm and line up beneath the eaves of that person's home. This is actually a really creepy dex entry. I always thought Shuppet was a pretty cute Pokemon, but it's much darker than I thought. Next, I'm heading into the Safari Zone, and I actually learned something that I didn't know existed in this game. Later, you actually have access to both bicycles, and you don't need to go to the shop to keep swapping them out. And there's actually some items here that we can't get until we have both. If I had known we couldn't do everything here right now, I would have skipped over it. But since I didn't, I'll cover what we did do here. Item-wise, I made sure to grab a Revive, a Calcium, the Absolite, a Max Revive, a Rare Candy, a Protein, a Nugget, and the Solar Beam TM. Afterwards, I did end up catching a few Pokemon, but again, we'll be back later for more. First up is the Bug-type Pokemon Pinsir. Pinsir is astoundingly strong. It can grip a foe weighing twice its weight in its horns and easily lift it. This Pokemon's movement turns sluggish on cold places. Using astoundingly as the adjective of choice is a very bold move. This thing can definitely move some weight. Next up is the Pokemon icon himself, Pikachu. Whenever Pikachu comes across something new, it blasts it with a jolt of electricity. If you come across a blackened berry, it's evidence that this Pokemon mistook the intensity of its charge. I wish Raichu was slightly better. I know it's a Gen 1 Pokemon, so over the years it's had some power creep, but I really like this line, and it really needs some better shinies. Following that is another Gen 1 Pokemon, Doduo. Doduo's two heads never sleep at the same time. Its two heads take turns sleeping, so one head can always keep watch for enemies while the other sleeps. I really wish I could see this in game where one of the heads is fast asleep while the other is on lookout duty. The last Pokemon I catch here is the yellow Psyduck. Psyduck uses mysterious power. When it does so, this Pokemon generates brainwaves that are supposedly only seen in sleepers. This discovery spurred controversy among scholars. Okay, I know this has been said a million times, but why on earth is this thing not part psychic type? The first three letters of its name literally spell Psy, as in psychic. Next, I head south towards Mount Pyre, but Route 122 has a single new Pokemon we need to catch, a 5% Whalmer. I do grab the Octillery so that we can chain fish while we search in the hopes that maybe we find ourselves a shiny, but instead I end up finding the Whalmer pretty quickly. Whalmer's nostrils are located above its eyes. This playful Pokemon loves to startle people by forcefully snorting out seawater it stores in its body of its nostrils. I could totally see some people hanging around the beach and there being some Whalmers in the water playing around. Alright, Mount Pyre is a pretty big section, having both an interior and exterior area. So of course, we'll start with the interior. During these trainers, we're going to get a little bit deep as we do here on the channel. So I want to ask you guys a question. You don't have to answer in the comments, just ask yourself, and feel free to take a pause or think on it as you watch the rest of this video. What type of person comes to mind when you hear your name? What type of person are you? What type of person do you want to be? When I heard this question, it made me do a lot of self-reflecting, and the answer that I came up with is that I want to be a dependable person. There are obviously other answers that I have, like trustworthy and respectable, but the main word for me is dependable, and that really made me think to myself, am I dependable? Am I there when it really counts? And for a while, I wasn't really sure. And by the way, if you aren't sure, that probably means no. For example, I couldn't even keep a consistent upload schedule here on YouTube. And if I can't do that, how can I expect to be dependable in other areas of my life too? So I've been trying to do my best to do better, starting with uploading every 7 to 10 days here on YouTube. And if this video isn't up by July 19th, 2025, then I'm off to a really bad start. Maybe for you, the answer is hardworking, caring, honest. It could literally be anything. But I encourage you to ask yourself and start taking some small steps towards becoming that person. Again, building these traits take time, and you can't just decide that you're going to be dependable. You have to actually show up and prove that that's the type of person you are. Maybe you already are the type of person you want to be, and if so, that's really awesome, and I'm really happy for you. But for the rest of us, I encourage you to start being the person that you've always wanted to be. Alright, let's take a quick jump into the items here. The Metachamite, the Shadow Ball TM, a Lax Incense, a Sea Incense, a Super Repel, an Ultra Ball, and the Cleanse tag. In addition, there's one new Pokemon here being a Duskull. Duskull can pass through any wall, no matter how thick it may be. Once this Pokemon chooses a target, it will dodgily pursue the intended victim until the break of dawn. I always knew Duskull was kind of a creepy Pokemon, but this is really creepy. That completes the interior, and now we're heading, well, to the exterior. Taking a step into my personal life, I'm going to be talking a little bit about time management, and I promise after this we'll step away from the deep stuff. For a very long time, I thought time management was such a dumb idea. As long as I get done what I need to, who really cares? And while that mindset isn't necessarily wrong, it isn't necessarily right either. Recently, I took a dive into what I spend my time doing each day, and a good chunk of it consists at me staring at a phone. I of course make sure to work on videos like these, but I never realized how much time I spent on apps like Twitter and TikTok. The sad reality is that I try to justify these things to myself, that I need to take some relaxation time. And while that's true, sometimes that time turns into hours, and sometimes the entire day. I've been taking small steps to slowly spend less time on social media, and on my phone in general, and that started with deleting Twitter. The only things I see on that app are distractions. Whether it be related to politics or just silly memes, they aren't helping me work towards my goal. And in place, it was actually slowing me down. I'm not saying to delete everything on your phone or anything like that, but maybe identify if you have any apps or social media that's eating up more of your time than it should. You know deep down there's probably that one app or maybe two. I encourage you to spend a little less time on your phone and working towards what you really want to do. Anyways, like I said, we'll take a step away from the deep stuff now, but just keep that in mind moving forward. At the summit, Maxie is waiting and has Courtney deal with us before he makes his leave with the red orb. An old couple then explains that the red orb and blue orb should never be separated and decides to give us the blue orb in hope that we will be able to reunite them. Before we head out though, we've still got some items to collect. The Will-O-Wisp TM, a Max Ether, an Ultra Ball, a Max Potion, the Bayonetite, a Zinc, a Rare Candy, a Dire Hit, and a Carbos. In addition, there are a few new Pokemon to collect, and the first I find is the Fire-type Pokemon Vulpix. At the time of its birth, Vulpix has a white tail. The tail separates into 6 if this Pokemon receives plenty of love from its trainer. The 6 tails become magnificently curled. Well, I'm happy to say that I've never seen a Vulpix with one white tail, and I hope that I never do. Vulpix is a really cute Pokemon, and I don't know how anyone could ever neglect it. Following that, I get pretty lucky and find the 5% Chimecho. Chimecho makes its cries echo inside its hollow body. When this Pokemon becomes enraged, its cries result in ultrasonic waves that have the power to knock foes flying. The fact that this Pokemon produces sound waves so strong to send its enemies flying is kind of scary. I do not want to get on Chimecho's bad side. The third and final Pokemon available here is Meditite. Meditite undertakes rigorous mental training deep in the mountains. However, whenever it meditates, this Pokemon always loses its concentration and focus. As a result, its training never ends. Poor Meditite. It's essentially stuck in an endless loop trying to train and never succeeding. I honestly wonder how they're ever able to even evolve. After leaving Mount Pyre, I head south to a huge section being Route 123. During this, I'm going to talk a little bit about some of my favorite Pokemon. If you're anything like me, your favorite Pokemon has changed more than once. I've had a number of favorites like Solosis, Leavanny, and Scolipede. And yes, you can tell I'm a pretty big Gen 5 fan. I remember liking Solosis so much because I saw a trainer with one and I needed to have one on my team. But I was playing Pokemon Black, and the Solosis line, well, it was exclusive to Pokemon White. This bummed me out a lot and only made me want one even more. And to this day, I still think Solosis is one of my favorites, and I plan on shiny hunting one in Gen 5 someday too. Following that is Leavanny. My first ever playthrough of Black, I chose Oshawott. My first ever playthrough of Pokemon Black, I chose Oshawott and picked up an early Sewaddle to use on the team. I think I also had an Unpheasant and maybe a Zebstrika, but I don't fully remember that team. Anyways, about a year ago, I played through my copy of White 2, and during that journey, I found myself a full odds 1 in 8192 shiny Swadloon. I really liked that Pokemon, and I wanted it to be perfect, so I waited until I beat the game and then EV trained it with 252 speed, 252 attack, and 6 HP EVs, and used it alongside my Bisharp in the battle subway. There, I was able to earn a lot of BP to unlock some exclusive items. I still have my copy to this day, and I even went on to complete the Pokedex in that game and unlock the Shiny Charm, which required a lot of transferring up from the older games. I was super hyper fixated on those games for like a month. So immediately after finishing my copy of White 2, I played through all of Black 2, and once complete, I spent 11 hours trading all of the Pokemon back and forth to get the shiny charm on that game too. I haven't touched those games in a minute, but I have about 250 to 300 hours in each game, and have collected about 15 shinies between the two. They're some of my favorite games I've ever played, and it may sound crazy, but I genuinely can't wait to make a forever save video on them. I know I've played through the region and completed the Pokedex, but something about those games will always keep me coming back. I know I kind of got sidetracked from my favorite Pokemon, but we'll touch more on that after collecting the items here. A rare candy, a PP up, a revival herb, some Lepa berries, some citrus berries, some Hondu berries, a super repel, a hyper potion, some tomato berries, some Greppa berries, some Qualot berries, an elixir, the Gyarados, an Eviolite, a wide lens, the Dazzling Gleam TM, an Ultra Ball, and finally, a Revive. Surprisingly, there aren't actually any new Pokemon here, so we can make our way over to Slateport City. At the harbor, Team Magma seems to have stolen a submarine, and of course it's our job to put a stop to their evil plan. After a quick ride, we arrive in Lily Cove City. There's not too many things we need to do here, but one very important item I do make sure to grab is the Altaria Knight. With this, our Altaria is now able to Mega Evolve, and the rival fight against Brendan here is the perfect opportunity to test it out. This thing is insanely big, by the way. It almost doesn't even fit on the screen, which is insane. Regardless, with our rival taken down, we can make sure to collect a Max Repel, the Rest TM, the Sleep Talk TM, a Pokeflute, a Hardscale, a Pokeball, and a PP Up. If you Rock Smash here on the beach, you can also find the single new encounter here being a Graveler. Graveler grows by feeding on rocks. Apparently, it prefers to eat rocks that are covered in moss. This Pokemon eats its way through a ton of rocks on a daily basis. Okay, I know it's a rock, but why does this guy have to eat rocks? That's just weird. Just north of here, we can find Team Magma's hideout, where we've got a lot of work to do. Essentially, we need to take down a bunch of random grunts here before eventually arriving in this room with a dock. Here awaits a team of 5 grunts who challenge us to a 1 vs 5 battle. But since their Poochyena are such a low level, we're able to win pretty easily. Next is Courtney, but all she has is her camera up, so it's another easy victory for us. However, it appears Maxie has already escaped in the submarine, so we'll have to find him elsewhere. Before leaving though, there are some items we need to collect. A Nugget, a Full Restore, an Escape Rope, a Max Revive, a PP Max, a Nest Ball, the TM for Dark Pulse, a second Nugget, and finally, the Master Ball. Also, we have the opportunity to collect a unique Pokemon here being Electrode. However, if you do attempt this, make sure you save as this thing loves using self-destruct. Electrode eats electricity in the atmosphere. On days when lightning strikes, you can see this Pokemon exploding all over the place from eating too much electricity. Essentially, it sounds like these things are ticking time bombs, and I don't know why any trainer would ever want one. With that, it's time to continue our search for Maxie, and that starts by heading east to Route 124. During this, we're going to touch on my thoughts for this region's evil team. In Hoenn, there are 2 evil teams, and they're constantly at war with each other. Team Magma and Team Aqua, and you'll have to stop one of them depending on which version of the game you're playing. This is a pretty unique concept in the sense that no other game has had 2 evil teams, just Hoenn. And while I do think Team Magma and Team Aqua are solid, they're far from my favorites. Team Plasma is easily my favorite, with Team Skull coming in a close second. Team Plasma because they literally have airships flying around the region and a much bigger team than any other. And Team Skull is a personal favorite of mine because they're kind of dumb and honestly aren't even evil. They just really like Guzma, and at the end of the day, Guzma isn't even a bad guy. He's just misunderstood. Anyways, Team Aqua seems to have a bit of an advantage over Team Magma though, not only in the sense that water types are super effective, but also there's simply just more water than land. It's a little unfair to say the least, but I do prefer Team Aqua, I think. Again, I didn't exactly grow up with these games, so these remakes were my personal introduction to the Hoenn region. That's probably part of the reason I thought these games were so amazing too. I didn't have the original to compare them to, and I understand there's probably a big nostalgia factor for most people who did. That being said, I have of course played the original games by now, and after experiencing both, I do still think these games were overhated. Are they perfect? No, but I think they did an amazing job reimagining this region. There are tons of little details they added that they could have easily skipped over, and those details really make this game feel complete. Anyways, I'm sure there are some of you who disagree with my thoughts, and that's totally fine. But as for me, these games will always be special. Unfortunately, we can't collect any items here just yet, as we need the dive TM, but trust me, we will be back here right after we get it. Just east of here, we arrive in Moss Deep City, where we make sure to collect a few items, being a big pearl, a king's rock, a star piece, the quash TM, a netball, a revive, the super rod, a sunstone, and an iron. There's nothing else we can do here for now, so inside the gym we go. This gym has a really different feature than the originals. I'm not sure if they just wanted to mix it up, or if the puzzles wouldn't work the same way they did back then. Regardless, I'm actually not a huge fan of this gym. The designs are cool, but I really don't like the puzzle. Anyways, Tate and Liza await us in the back of the gym, and with just a Soul Rock and Lunatone, they're really no threat to us at all. Upon defeat, they hand over the mine badge along with the Calm Mine TM. However, as soon as we head outside, there's a massive earthquake and a pillar of light shoots into the sky. Steven is here to witness the event and asks us to meet him inside of his house. There, he lets us know he's doing his best to deal with the situation, but can't do it alone and asks for our assistance. We agree and he hands us the dive TM along with the scuba gear before heading out. After our short meeting, we head right back over to Route 124 where we have some items to collect. Unfortunately, I forgot to timestamp all of these items, but I did go through the footage and find the two important items we did collect here, being the pincerite and the skyplate. There are others, but again, I forgot to timestamp them, and most of them are hard scales, so forgive me for messing this one up. Anyways, with access to dive, there are 3 new Pokemon we can find here underwater, and the first I come across is a Relicanth. Relicanth is a Pokemon species that existed for 100 million years without ever changing its form. This ancient Pokemon feeds on microscopic organisms with its toothless mouth. I think Relicanth has a perfect design. It really captures the look of something that's been here for a very long time. Following that is one of my favorite water types, Chinchou. Chinchou lets loose positive and negative electrical charges from its 2 antennas to make its prey faint. This Pokemon flashes its electric lights to exchange signals with others. On top of this thing's amazing typing, one of my favorite things about it are its button eyes. They're perfect. Finally is the bivalve Pokemon Clamperl. Clamperl's sturdy shell is not only good for protection, it is also used for clamping and catching prey. A fully grown Clamperl shell will be scored with nicks and scratches all over. I am not a huge fan of Clamperl, but again, I love its evolutions. Also, I can't be the only one who thought the Pearl part of this thing's name was spelled normally. I don't really know why they took out the A. Anyways, we can now head north of Moss Deep to one of the most forgettable areas, Route 125. There's not too many trainers here, but I will quickly touch on some of the upcoming sections. The water routes are especially long in this game, and you'll really start to notice that in the upcoming ones. Probably 99% of people just go through them dodging all the trainers and skipping over the items. But again, this is my forever save, so we'll be doing it all. Some of these routes can take upwards of an hour and sometimes even multiple to make sure I go to all the dive spots, find all the items, and defeat every last trainer. If you've made it this far into the video, you probably like my content, or at least I hope you do. These videos take an insane amount of time to make between recording, script writing, and editing, which is why I can only get these videos out around every week to week and a half. So if you like this video and want to see more Forever Save content, I encourage you to click the subscribe button. It's free, and if you ever stop enjoying my content, you can always unsubscribe later. Anyways, let's jump into the items. And by items, I mean the singular pearl located on this island. With that, we can head inside Shoal Cave, though it's currently high tide so we can't collect all of the items. However, I do make sure to grab a rare candy, a big pearl, and some shoal shells. Shoal shells. That is a hard word to say. Shoal shells. Shoal shell, shoal shell, shoal shell. In addition, there are a few Pokemon here, so let's start with Celio. Celio has the habit of always juggling on the top of its nose anything it sees for the first time. This Pokemon occasionally entertains itself by balancing and rolling a spheal on its nose. This is actually really cute because I can imagine these guys putting on a cool act in a circus or maybe the Pokemon equivalent of SeaWorld. Anyways, second is the poison flying type Golbat. Golbat loves to drink the blood of living things. It is particularly active in the pitch black of night. This Pokemon flits around in the night skies, seeking fresh blood. I didn't realize how aggressive this thing was. I guess all the years of me being annoyed and thinking Golbat was weak is starting to show. But if I saw this thing in real life, I would be running for my life. Lastly is the Ice Ball himself, Spheal. Spheal is much faster rolling than walking to get around. When groups of this Pokemon eat, they all clap at once to show their pleasure. Because of this, their meal times are noisy. I would love to witness a mass gathering of Spheals to eat a meal. Probably only once though, because it seems like it would get old pretty quick. With that, it's time to start tackling these big water routes. For now, I want to talk to you guys a bit about motivation. If you're anything like me, you can be super motivated to do things one minute and the next, it's all gone. I also get like these surges of motivation around midnight, which is always the worst because as much as I would love to work on the thing I'm motivated to do, getting good rest is always a priority. If you've seen my other videos, you know I like to talk to you guys about working towards your goals and dreams. And today, I want to share a quote with you that really helped me. And it reads, "If you don't make sacrifices to achieve your goal, then your goal becomes the sacrifice." Now, this might not make perfect sense to you at first, but essentially what I took away from this is that even on the bad days, the sad days, and just the days I want to lay in bed, I need to show up and put in the work. This goes hand in hand with what I was talking about earlier on being dependable. And it might sound dumb, but I want you guys to be able to depend on me to upload high quality videos like these every single week. And let me tell you, it isn't easy. Even if YouTube was my full-time job, I don't think I would be able to work on this as if it was a 9 to 5. I love Pokemon and I love editing. But what works best for me is to record or edit for 2 to 3 hours and then take a break and come back later. This not only prevents me from burning out, but also gives me time to think on what direction I want to take the video and what talking points I want to cover during sections like these. I say all of this so that you, whatever it may be you're working towards, can hopefully not burn yourself out and find the motivation to keep going. Sometimes you don't have anyone who believes in you, and trust me, I've been there. But if you need someone to tell you to keep going, let that person be me. I believe in you. Only you can make your dreams happen. And remember, progress doesn't happen overnight, so don't quit after your first try. Keep on going. Alright, I know again we got a little personal there, but now we're going to head into the items here. The Heracronite, a Zinc, a Spooky Plate, an Insect Plate, and a Dread Plate. Route 128 is all that stands between us and the seafloor cavern. But before we go, I have one quick question I want to ask. And no, it's not some deep super personal question, so don't worry. What is your favorite Hoenn Pokemon? But not just that, I want to know why too. Lots of times I ask people, they just say that they like the design or that it looks cool. And there's nothing wrong with that. But if any of you have a cool story about your favorite Pokemon, like you thought it was a legendary, maybe it saved your Nuzlocke, or maybe it was the first Pokemon you ever used, like a starter. I love hearing stories like that, and some of you have already shared stuff like that with me in the comments, so I thank you for that. I read each and every comment, and I do my best to reply to them all too, so I promise yours won't go unnoticed. Anyways, let's jump into the few items here. The Stone Plate, the Draco Plate, the Pixie Plate, and the Adamant Orb. Real quick, I also make sure to catch a Lovedisk here. Lovedisk live in shallow seas in the tropics. This heart-shaped Pokemon earned its name by swimming after loving couples it spotted in the ocean waves. Lovedisk is actually such an icon. I really wish they would buff it because it has a cool design and I would totally use a shiny one because the colors on it are so good. Anyways, we then arrive at Seafloor Cavern, and I always thought it was funny that they made their submarine look like a Camerupt. I know it's one of Team Magma's staple Pokemon, but designing the underwater submarine after a Pokemon that's quad weak to water will always be funny to me. Anyways, there's a plethora of grunts here, but I've been sharing a lot of stories and thoughts, so we'll skip over them. And to be clear, I mean skip over them in the video, not skip fighting them because I did take them down. There are 2 TMs we can grab before making it to Maxie, being the Scald TM and the Earthquake TM. At the bottom, Magma and Archie are arguing about Groudon, and after noticing us, Maxie challenges us to a battle. Again, the storyline battles aren't very difficult for us, but remember, you do literally get access to a Mega Latios after the 5th gym in this game, so I don't want to see any comments about how I'm making the game too easy. I do appreciate that Maxie has a Mega Camerupt though. I honestly wish there were more trainers that use them because most people probably haven't even seen them all in game. After the battle, the 2 continue to argue before Maxie holds the red orb up in an attempt to wake Groudon, and it actually works. This cutscene has always been cool to me, but I never see anyone talk about it because of how much they prefer the original. And don't get me wrong, the original cutscene is really cool, but something about the 3D version is special, to me at least. On the surface, Maxie reflects on his actions and realizes that maybe reviving Groudon wasn't his best idea. Archie chimes in and says that there might be a way to stop this if we head over to Sootopolis City and meet him at the Cave of Origin. And while we will be going there, we need to tackle Route 126 first. Let's take a moment to reflect on this region's gyms. We only have 1 gym left, but what did I think of the first 7? Well, for Roxanne, I think her Nosepass and Geodude are a perfect beginner team. I don't think I would change anything about it. Brawly on the other hand also has 2 Pokemon, being a Machop and a Makuhita. His gym is pretty much right after the first one, so these 2 are fine, but if it were up to me, I'd throw in a Meditite for a bit more of a challenge. Third is Watson, and his team is pretty solid. A Magnemite, a Voltorb, and a Magneton. For his ace being only level 21, I'm somewhat surprised they gave him a Magneton, but I'm glad that they did. This feels like a good challenge as Watson was in the original games too. Fourth is Flannery, and again, I think her team is good. A Slugma, Numel, and an Ace Torkoal is perfect. Now, Norman is where it gets a bit tricky as he has 2 Slacking and a Vigoroth. Personally, I would drop a Slacking and toss on a Swellow and Linoon for a well-rounded but still challenging team. Now, after this is when the player has access to Mega Evolution, so I also think that each gym should be able to Mega Evolve their ace. Winona's team consists of a Swellow, Pelipper, Skarmory, and Altaria. This team is perfect, but I think this would have been a super cool opportunity to give her one of the region's new Megas. You could argue that Mega Altaria loses its flying type, but I still think it would have added a fun challenge to the gym. The 7th gym leaders, Tate and Liza, just have a Solrock and Lunatone. Yes, I'm aware that this is a remake, and this is their original team from Ruby and Sapphire, but throwing in a Medicham and Gardevoir wouldn't be too bad, although making the Gardevoir Mega would be a bit overkill. Overall though, I'd say the gym leaders in this game are pretty well made, and I'm sure lots of these decisions were made with the intention of staying true to the original games. While underwater, I make sure to grab the Mind Plate, but something amazing happened while I was exploring. I decided to go up in a diving area only to discover a brand new place, the Secret Islet. I literally did not know that this place existed despite playing through these games 3 or 4 times now. Never once did I think to check around here. It's stuff like this that constantly reminds me why these games are so amazing. Most people have probably never even seen this, and I bet there's some of you watching that are seeing this for the first time too. There aren't any items or Pokemon to collect here, but a lone tree that stands in the center. I decided that this had to be my new secret base location. If you've seen part 1, you know we had a secret base back near the desert area. but this is just too perfect. I take some time decorating the inside, but I still don't have a ton of items at my disposal, so I'll be sure to come back later to make it look even better. After leaving, I dive back under the water where we can collect the sole new Pokemon available here, a Lantern. Lantern is nicknamed the Deep Sea Star Pokemon for its illuminated antenna. This Pokemon produces light by causing a chemical reaction between bacteria and its bodily fluids inside the antenna. Similar to Chinchou, I really like this Pokemon. It's an iconic water type with a perfect typing. I do wish its shiny was a little bit better though. Next, I resurface and finally arrive in Sutopolis City. Before heading to the Cave of Origin though, I quickly grab a protein and a super potion. As I approach the cave, Steven appears to be waiting for us, and he's accompanied by the 8th gym leader, Wallace. They explain that the harsh sunlight is beating down on the city, and say that there might be a way we can stop it if we make our way inside the Cave of Origin. Maxie and Archie are already here, and not wanting to go in themselves, they hand the magma suit to us and task us with dealing with the issue. Wallace then steps in and explains that since we have the blue orb, nothing should be able to stop us and that we should be able to quell Groudon. Out of nowhere, our rival shows up and essentially lets us know that he has no idea what's going on, but that he's still cheering for us and that we should do our very best. With that, I approach the cave and head inside. There are 2 hidden items that I collect on my descent, being an X attack and a revive. There's also 1 new Pokemon depending on your version of the game, and in Omega Ruby, that is a Mawile. Mawile's huge jaws are actually steel horns that have been transformed. Its docile looking face serves to lull foes into letting its guard down. When the foe least expects it, Mawile chomps with its gaping jaws. I know this dex entry literally explains that Mawile's appearance is just to get you to let your guard down, but I love this thing and I would definitely have one on my team. Eventually, I make my way deeper into the cave until I find myself at the core, where Groudon himself is waiting. I equip the magma suit, and I'll just let you guys watch this absolutely cinematic cutscene. Once we arrive, we're set in this beautiful area, and if you're playing Alpha Sapphire, it will of course be different. After saving the game, I walk forward and challenge the newly Mega Evolved Groudon. As I challenge this thing, I want to take a second to appreciate the attention to detail here. It's the little things like having a custom battle background for this area that take it to the next level. Also, I'm pretty sure the catch rate is boosted for this thing because I was able to catch it on my very first Ultra Ball. Groudon is said to be the personification of the land itself. Legends tell of its many clashes against Kyogre, as each sought to gain the power of nature. Okay, I know earlier I was saying that I wasn't the biggest fan of Groudon, but after this, I actually take back what I said. This thing is kind of cool. Once captured, a wave of peace settles over the Hoenn region, and I find myself relating to this. Each time I'm working on a big video like this, I don't feel stressed, but a sense of peace. I know that each minute I spend working on these is time spent working towards my goals. These games are perfect. As we resurface from the cave, everyone greets us in our return. Maxie in particular regrets his choices, and while I'm not a huge fan of Maxie, I do respect when someone can own up to their mistakes. He then hands us the red orb, which will allow us to activate Primal Reversion or Mega Evolution with Groudon if we so choose. Steven then also thanks us and encourages us to explore more of the Hoenn region before handing us the Eon Flute. This unique item is one of the things I've been looking forward to the most because I've never really used it before. I always used to just fly as it was a whole lot faster, but this time around, I'm going to do my best to use it a whole lot more. Before that, there are some items we need to collect now that we've put an end to this disaster. the Sablonite, the Brick Break TM, and a Wilmer, which I will of course be adding to the secret base. There's one final gym we need to take on here before we can actually challenge the league, and that gym is right here in the heart of Sutopolis. This gym's puzzle is actually a whole lot easier in this game thanks to the diagonal movement. Because of this, you can go to tiles you couldn't normally reach in the original games. There's 3 different ones we need to solve, but luckily they're pretty simple. At the end lies Wallace, Hoenn's water type specialist. Also, maybe it's just me, but I don't really like the way they made him look in this game. His design just feels a bit off, but I don't know. Anyways, his team for some reason doesn't have a Kingdra, but instead a Love Disc and a Celio? This is the final gym leader before the league. He should at least have all of his Pokemon fully evolved, no? Regardless, we're able to take him down with ease, and he rewards us with the Rain Badge, meaning we've collected all 8. Oh, and he also hands us the Waterfall HM, which will be needed to reach the league. Outside of the gym, I cast my Super Rod in search for the 5% Gyarados, and I'm actually able to reel it in pretty quickly. When Magikarp evolves into Gyarados, its brain cells undergo a structural transformation. It is said that this transformation is to blame for this Pokemon's wildly violent nature. There's no denying Gyarados is iconic, and is widely regarded as one of the best Pokemon for a playthrough in most games. But if I happened to stumble across one of these in real life, I wouldn't go anywhere near it. With Gyarados caught, I want to show off the Eon Flute and share with you guys my thoughts on the Hoenn region and future plans for this series. First off, I want to say that there will be a part 3. During that video, I plan to take on the League, Delta episode, and go back through the routes to collect all of the items that I missed along with the Pokemon. Honestly, that may even take 2 videos to cover, but regardless, this series isn't going anywhere. If you've seen my last video, you'll know we started our forever save in Pokemon X, and I wanted to ask you guys what you prefer. Should I finish all of the Omega Ruby series and then go back over to Pokemon X, or maybe alternate between the two? You also might not have a preference, which is totally fine. I'm sure regardless of the option I decide, the videos will still be enjoyable for me to record and edit. I'm in a really good rhythm right now, where I'm not burning out, and I even look forward to working on these videos, which is really rare for me. Not because I don't like doing this, but because sometimes I can sit down and enjoy the game, and then lack the motivation to edit. These videos are honestly really long, and opening up the editing software to see I'm only 12 minutes in can be somewhat demotivating. One thing I will say is that the comments have been extremely supportive recently. There have been so many of you that let me know that my videos have helped you unwind after a long day, and even motivated some of you to start working towards your own goals. Comments like this have really helped motivate me when I'm in a slump. So I want to say thank you to each and every one of you that have made it this far into the video. I've said it plenty of times here on the channel, but I would love to be able to make videos like this full time, and each person that clicks on this video helps me get one step closer to making that dream a reality. Thank you for supporting me. It really means the world, and I hope you continue to enjoy my videos for the foreseeable future. Oh, and real quick, I try not to plug this too much, but I do have a Patreon linked in the description if you want to go above and beyond to support me. Anyways, I parked my Latios here in Lily Cove, because if you head inside the department store, there are a set of ladies on the top floor that sell tons of items that can be used to decorate the secret base. And let's just say I spent a lot of money here. I bought plushies, carpets, posters, and more. So let's head over to the secret base to do some decorating. A lot of what I placed was pretty random, and what you're seeing right now is the sped up footage of me moving stuff all over the place. Unfortunately, I did learn that there is a decoration limit. I was planning on going back to buy even more stuff and pretty much filling every tile in the room with items, but that's just not possible. Regardless, here's the final product. It's not perfect, and again, we will likely come back here and change some stuff later, but I'm really happy with how it looks for now. Also, this little area is basically where these guys come to gather and hang out. I tried to use some of the cool ones, but the Wilmer in the corner is probably my favorite. I honestly didn't expect him to be so big. One day, I went to buy the massive Wailord plush from the Pokemon Center, but that's a whopping $500, so I'm thinking maybe when we hit 50,000 subs, I'll make that purchase. Last time, we finished collecting all 8 gym badges, but before taking on the league, there's a few things I want to do. First, I head over towards Mauville. One thing that fascinates me a lot here is the Mauville Hills area. Basically, there are these luxury apartments here that people are living in, and I never even knew this place existed. But before we meet up with Watson, there are a few items I want to collect. And first is the TM for U-turn, located on this super cool balcony that overlooks Mauville. After that, we can head to a different apartment where we can actually challenge a lady to a rotation battle. It isn't difficult or anything, but I didn't think rotation battles were even in this game, so doing one here was a nice nod to the Gen 5 games. Afterwards, I meet up with Watson, where he explains that we need to check on New Mauville and make sure that nothing is wrong. He scans our eyes because apparently the New Mauville has face recognition. Pretty cool stuff. Anyways, once in New Mauville, there's one new Pokemon we need to catch, and that would be a Magnemite. Magnemite attaches itself to power lines to feed on electricity. If your house has a power outage, check your circuit breakers. You may find a large number of this Pokemon clinging to the breaker box. This dex entry is pretty cool because I could totally imagine someone going to check their breaker box and being like, it's those darn Magnemites back at it again. There are some items we need to collect here too, being a Paralyze Heal, a Thunderstone, an Escape Rope, a Max Repel, a Full Heal, an Ultra Ball, a Metal Coat, and the Ampharosite. Immediately after collecting this, I of course give it to our own Ampharos and send it into battle and watch her Mega Evolve. I've heard people say Mega Ampharos's design is bad, but I actually like it a lot. Not to mention it becomes part dragon, like that's actually so cool. Afterwards, we literally press one button on this computer only for it to tell us that there are 0 issues and nothing we need to do. So I make my way back to the Mauville Hills, but before meeting up with Watson, there's a shady looking guy standing outside of an apartment, but he's nice enough to give us the Lopunite. Then Watson thanks us even though we didn't really do anything, but he does give us the Thunderbolt TM, which is quite nice. For this and a few upcoming routes, we are back in the ocean taking on some water routes. You've probably heard many people say that the Hoenn region has too much water, and that was most famously quoted from IGN's official review of these games. And while I do think there are lots of water routes, I don't agree with them, but I also don't disagree either. A good chunk of water routes are completely optional, including this one, meaning you can go the whole game without ever setting foot here. And there's a good chance that most people who play these games don't come here. And to be fair, there isn't exactly a great reason to. Yes, there are items and trainers to battle here for us completionists, but there's no special area or new Pokemon to see, hence why the route is optional. So what do I actually think? Well, I think for the casual player, this amount of water is completely fine, especially if you're skipping trainers and items. You can breeze through these routes in a matter of minutes, and to be fair, Kyogre is one of the box legendaries, so there being lots of water does make some amount of sense. Now, on the other side of the coin, these routes can become quite tedious for someone like me. I don't mind going through the routes collecting the items, as that's one of the things I enjoy, and at the end, I essentially want a master copy, so I can shiny hunt to my heart's content. However, the problem with the water routes is that they're quite repetitive. Every single route consists of swimmers, usually carrying the same few Pokemon as the others. So I could definitely make the argument that the game leans heavy on the water routes, but again, for the average player, that isn't much of an issue. And to be fair, this is a remake of a game over 20 years old, so I obviously would not expect them to take routes out of the game or make any crazy changes like that. Anyways, sorry for my rant, but let's move on to the items. A Big Pearl, the Splash Plate, a Blue Shard, the Lustrous Orb, the Zap Plate, and the Toxic Plate. Okay, remember when I said there were no new Pokemon here? Well, that's true and false in the sense that all Pokemon here are also found on other routes. The first that I find here is a Frillish. Now, you might be confused when seeing this, because Frillish, well, it shouldn't be here. It's a Gen 5 Pokemon, and this is a Gen 3 remake. Well, one of the things I love about this game is that after catching the game's box legendary, you can encounter a whole set of new Pokemon on almost every route in the game. However, since we haven't taken on the league and upgraded our Pokédex, it is unable to be identified. So I'll do my best to stay away from Pokemon like this until we have the upgraded dex. Anyways, second here is a favorite of mine, being Horsey. Horsey eats small insects and moss off rocks. If the ocean current turns fast, this Pokemon anchors itself by wrapping its tail around rocks or coral to prevent from being washed away. I like this dex entry because it's accurate to seahorses in real life. Seahorses will literally grab onto things with their tail to avoid being swept away. You could make the argument that this Pokemon is too simple or too realistic, but remember, this is a Gen 1 mod, so don't criticize it too hard when Pokemon like Seal exist. Immediately after, we're able to reel in the 5% Seadra. Seadra sleeps after wriggling itself between branches of coral. Those trying to harvest coral are occasionally stung by this Pokemon's poison barbs if they fail to notice it. After reading this dex entry, you might argue that Seadra could or even should be part poison type. But what I love about this entry is that there's actually a really cool nod to it, being that Seadra specifically gets the ability Poison Point. Neither Horsey or Kingdra get this, which makes it extremely cool to me. East of here is Route 130, but there's only a couple trainers here, so we're going to jump straight into the items. The Icicle Plate, the Meadow Plate, a Green Shard, the Earth Plate, the Fist Plate, and the Gracious Orb. Okay, do you guys remember the Secret Islet from the previous video? If so, you'll know that it's a hidden island where you can actually set up a secret base. What I didn't know is that the Secret Islet isn't the only special area for secret bases. There's actually an entire area hidden in these routes called the Secret Meadow. There are lots of different spots to make your base here, all being part of this mountain-ish terrain. However, I really like this spot. Not enough to move here away from the Secret Islet, but I still wanted to show it off as I think it's another really cool area most people have probably never even seen. If you're following along or haven't touched on secret bases at all, I highly recommend checking out this location. Alright, let's go ahead and jump to Route 131. There aren't a ton of trainers here either, but I'm going to introduce a new section of my little talking bits, and this time it's a few trivia questions for you, the viewer, all of which will be based on Hoenn. In Pokemon Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, the fossils are found randomly in the corner of the desert. However, back in the original games, there was a special location in the desert where you had to go to collect your fossil. What is that location called? Go ahead and pause the video if you need a second to think. But for those of you that are ready, the answer is Mirage Tower. Question 2. Hoenn has two fossils. One revives into Lilib and the other into Anorith. These fossils have names. For example, Omanite is the Helix fossil. What are the names of the Gen 3 fossils? Again, go ahead and pause the video if you need a second to think. But for those of you that are ready, the answer is the Root fossil and the Claw fossil. Alright, we'll do one final question, and that is, Hoenn is the only region to introduce two pseudo-legendaries. If you don't know, a pseudo-legendary is a Pokemon with a base stat total of exactly 600. Usually a dragon type, but not always. What are the two found in Hoenn? Again, take a pause if needed, but for those ready, the answers are Salamence and Metagross. This is me sort of testing out a new section, so please let me know if you like stuff like this, or if you'd rather hear me yap about life, the game, or whatever. Oh, and be sure to let me know how many of these you got right. This is only my 4th ever Forever Save video, and I believe there's always room for improvement. So again, your feedback goes a long way. Jumping back into the game, this route has nothing to offer right now, but it does house Sky Pillar, which we will of course be coming back to. East of here, we can arrive in my personal favorite Hoenn location, Pacifidlog Town. While here, we need to collect a short list of items. The Psyshock TM, a Heart Scale, the Kangaskhanite, a Big Pearl, the Return TM, the Frustration TM, and the Fling TM. Seeing as this is my favorite, I wanted to do something special here, and that special thing is to actually find ourselves a shiny. The really cool part about this area is that with a super rod, Whalmer has a 100% encounter rate, so let's get to fishing. If you don't know, chain fishing is an easy to learn but hard to master shiny hunting method, with some of the best shiny odds maxing out at 1 in 100. Now, you might be wondering why I'm going for Whalmer and not something else, and that's because we actually need a Whalmer for something coming up very soon. Well, more specifically a Whale Lord. Gen 3 enthusiasts are well aware of what this is needed for, but those of you that don't, let's just say you're in for something special. Anyways, we get fairly decent luck, and after only about an hour, I'm able to reel in the purple whale. If you're anything like me, you always save your master ball. Not for anything in particular, but it just feels nice to have one. You know, just in case. But instead of saving it like I always do, I decide to use it here on the Whalmer. The master ball matches the shiny way too perfectly, so I just felt like I needed to do it. Oh, and also his name is Onion. With the purple whale added to the collection, we're moving on to a section of 3 routes. If you've played any Hoenn game, you probably have heard of these routes. But if you've actually tried to go down all of the paths, battle the trainers, and collect the items, you'll know it's extremely tedious. Anyways, enough complaining by me. I want to touch on, well, the unofficial rule set of a forever save. The entire point of a forever save is, well, to keep it forever, and what you do in it may vary from person to person. Some people might like 100%ing the game, while others may prefer just to play it casually, maybe catch a couple Pokemon and keep those in the box. What I'm saying is that a forever save should be played the way you enjoy most. The reason I say this is because I've had 1 or 2 comments of someone saying they didn't like how I traded in my team. And I've stated my reasoning before, but essentially I enjoy using different Pokemon. A lot of these games I've played through about a dozen times, so I've used a good chunk of Pokemon here in the region. I also am a huge fan of shiny Pokemon, so it's really nice to get to use the ones that I hunt every once in a while, especially on a playthrough journey like this. Also, having the trade EXP bonus means I don't have to grind on any Pokemon, which to be fair isn't much of an issue considering we are battling all of the trainers. But I would like to know what you guys think. Are you okay with me trading in a team? Of course, all shinies I use are hunted legit, but usually in other games with method hunts that increase my shiny odds. I could shiny hunt the Pokemon as I go, but that would take an extreme amount of time, especially if I'm target hunting all of my team. I just wanted to quickly address this because of the couple people that commented on it, so definitely let me know what you think down below. Anyways, let's move on to the items. A rare candy, the Psych Up TM, a star piece, a protein, a big pearl, a heart scale, a second heart scale, a Carbos, the Sludge Wave TM, a Max Revive, the Rock Slide TM, a Star Piece, a Calcium, and 1 last Heart Scale. You saw me collect all of these items in a matter of seconds. But in reality, clearing these routes took way longer than any other routes in the game, because I had to constantly fly back to the beginning to take the different water currents. Anyways, remember how I said that we're going to need a Whalmer for something special? Well, that's happening right now. Oh, and we're also going to need a Relicanth, which luckily we caught earlier in this series. Whalmer still needs 5 levels before its evolution, so I end up using my rare candies. Was it inefficient? Yes, but what else am I going to use them on realistically? Anyways, if you take a dive underwater here on Route 134, you'll eventually end up in the sealed chamber. There's a lot of text here in the unknown language, but what you need to know is that here in the first room, the cavern's northern wall translates to dig here, which of course we do. This reveals a second room with 6 tablets, each one telling stories about how the Reggies were sealed away. In the very back lies a stone that reads, "First comes Relicanth, last comes Wailord." Of course, yours does not need to be shiny like mine. I just wanted one because, well, it's cool. Anyways, if your party meets this requirement, and by the way, that literally does mean the first party member needs to be Relicanth, and the last party member needs to be a Wailord. It's not enough to just have them, they need to be in the right spots. But what this does is send what seems to be an earthquake throughout the region, but in reality, this unlocks 3 sealed chambers, each housing one of the Reggies. The first lies on an island on Route 105, but before that, we need to clear out Route 106. Luckily, we've already done most things here as this route is connected to Dewford Town. However, we haven't taken on the trainers in the water. Next up, we're going to jump into a Q&A section. If you do decide to become a member on Patreon, you too can ask me questions which will then be answered in sections of my video just like this. Oh, and you also get your name in the credits of every single one of my videos. Anyways, RMS Warfare asked, do you have any other plans for content besides the Forever Saves? And well, the answer is yes and no. The Forever Save series is something I really enjoy and plan on covering pretty much every game there is, as having a Forever Save in every single Pokemon game would be super cool. However, burnout is a real thing, and if I ever start to feel that way, I would definitely consider posting a video on a different topic in between some of the Forever Save stuff. Some of my ideas for stuff like that is a video on reading dex entries, or even a very laid-back Nuzlocke style video. If you're interested in either of those, definitely let me know. And if you're only here for the Forever Save content, that's totally fine too, as I'm not feeling any burnout towards that at all, especially considering all of you guys leaving such positive feedback. Let's jump into the items here on Route 105. A heart scale, an iron, and a big pearl. Now, if we head to the west side of this route, you can see an island surrounded by 6 rocks, and inside awaits a puzzle that we need to solve, and again, it is in the unknown language. The text here translates to, stop and wait unmoving as the time passes by you twice, which essentially just means stand still for 2 minutes. And after that time passes, the entrance appears before us, and inside is the frozen member of the trio, Regice. So, fun fact, I've actually never done any of these puzzles. Of course, I've seen them and know how to do them as they've been out, well, for over 20 years at this point, but I still never got around to doing any of them. It was always too tedious to go get the Wailmer, evolve it, and go catch a Relicanth. It's a lot easier here in the remakes, but doing it in the original games never really happened for me as I've only played through Emerald once. Anyways, after only a few Ultra Balls, we can claim Regice for ourselves. Regice's body was made during an ice age. The deep frozen body can't be melted, even by fire. This Pokemon controls frigid air at negative 328 degrees Fahrenheit. We all know the Regis existed long ago, but this dex entry states that this ice can't be melted, not even by fire. So why not give it the ability Heatproof? Bronzong already has that ability, so it wouldn't be too difficult to slap it onto this little guy. With the first member caught, we're heading into the desert in search of the second. Down at the bottom, you can find another cave with 6 more surrounding rocks, just like the previous one. Inside awaits yet another puzzle, and this time the text reads, right, down, then use strength. This one is pretty straightforward, and after moving into that position and using strength, the entrance appears. Inside, of course, awaits the man himself, Regirock. It's really cool to me that you can actually catch all of these guys before even taking on the league. Also, the Regis are a trio I've always wanted to shiny hunt. They're pretty cool, and I would actually love to do it in black and white too. Reason being that if you manage to get the shiny charm, you have around a 1 in 2700 chance to encounter them. Anyways, Regirock actually takes quite a few balls, but eventually we're able to capture it. Regirock was sealed away by people long ago. If this Pokemon's body is damaged in battle, it is said to seek out suitable rocks on its own to repair itself. This dex entry is kind of wholesome. Seeing a Regirock at the park trying on rocks to see if they'd be a good replacement is really cool. Finally, we can head deep into Route 120 where the ancient tomb awaits. Yet again, the area is decorated with the 6 rock pattern, and inside awaits the final puzzle. The text on the wall reads, stand center, aim to the sky with love and hope in time. Knowing that information, I head to the middle of the room and use Fly with our Altaria. And what do you know, the entrance actually opens up. This reveals the final member of the trio, Registeel himself. Registeel is probably my favorite of the 3. Not only does it have the best typing, but the shiny turning a mint green on this thing is so clean. Anyways, Registeel actually only takes about 5 balls to capture, which is super nice. Registeel has a body that is harder than any kind of metal. Its body is apparently hollow. No one has any idea what this Pokemon eats. I love that this dex entry leaves the reader wanting more. Like, what exactly does Registeel eat? Does it even have a mouth? Does it even need to eat? Well, no one really knows. We do now have all 3 Regis, but any veteran Pokemon players know that there's actually a 4th member. However, that's going to have to wait for now, as I want to be able to read the dex entry on that. Next, we head over to Route 107, where I'm going to talk to you guys a little bit about myself. My name is Spencer, and I'm 22 years old. Well, actually, I'm turning 23 in about a week on August 2nd. I've got a large family, as I'm the oldest of 4 siblings. I currently work at a grocery store as a cashier/bagger. My hobbies are, well, of course Pokemon, but I'm also an author who's published a book and currently working on a second one. And as you know, I've got dreams of being a YouTuber. The reason I say all of this is because I want you guys to know a little bit about the person behind the face of this channel. I'm currently working on a Discord server because I would absolutely love to have a place where myself along with all of you guys can talk, share Pokemon stories, or show off your own forever saves for people to see. Also, real quick, I want to tell you guys that I have a Patreon linked down in the description. There's actually some stuff there that is completely free, like some polls and questions for you guys. So if you have a moment, I'd really appreciate it if you took the time to check it out. Alright, moving on, there are 2 simple items to collect: the flame plate and a yellow shard. We then immediately move on to Route 108, where there again are just 2 items, being a star piece and a rare candy. Anyways, what's important here on Route 108 is that it connects to Sea Mauville, or the abandoned ship for you Gen 3 fans. A bit of lore on this area is that it used to be a hub where engineers and scientists dredged for natural resources below the water's surface. Eventually, the area was abandoned once it became apparent that it was slowly falling over into the waves. Today it stands half sunken into the water, but remains as a refuge for water-type Pokemon and a popular tourist attraction. I'm actually a really big fan of this location. I didn't like it as much back in Gen 3, but the total revamp of this area made the location feel like there was a lot more to explore and do here. Essentially, there are a bunch of rooms here on the ship, some locked and some unlocked. But to get inside of the locked ones, you need to find the room keys for them. So now, let's start the list of items located here: an escape rope, the rain dance TM, a max repel, the room 1 key, a white herb, a dive ball, the room 2 key, the room 6 key, a revive, the room 4 key, and the storage key. The storage key actually unlocks a special door hidden outside of the ship. Inside lies a plethora of items, but more importantly, an old man Skitty who he's been searching for, and for years it was stuck inside of here. The old guy didn't even want the treasure sitting in here, just his Skitty was more than enough. This wholesome interaction left me questioning if I even wanted to pick up the treasure myself. But alas, this is a forever save, so I guess I have to. Here, we make sure to collect a big nugget, the ice beam TM, a nugget, a second big nugget, a third big nugget, a fourth big nugget, a fifth big nugget. Okay, there's a lot of nuggets, so I'm sure you get the point. Aside from nuggets, we do collect a luxury ball and the Beedrillite. There's one final item we can collect at the very bottom of Sea Mauville, and that is the scanner. What's fascinating about this item is that if you talk to the scientist near the front of the ship, he'll tell you to deliver this to Captain Stern. So I make my way back to Slateport and seek him out. Stern asks if he can have it, which I do say yes to, and in return he hands over the clear bell. We then can return to Sea Mauville, where the clear bell seems to be reacting. But even cooler, at the very tip of the ship, there's a portal waiting for us. And inside is none other than the legendary Pokemon himself, Ho-Oh. I love the legendary encounters in this game. They added them in such a unique way, and I'm experiencing all of this for the first time 10 years after these games' release. Anyways, Ho-Oh doesn't take too long, and after about 10 Ultra Balls, I'm able to capture it. What sucks is that I forgot we wouldn't be able to read the dex entry as we still haven't upgraded our Pokédex. Trust me, we will be doing that soon, but first, there's one last location I want to visit, the Scorched Slab. The slab is a pretty dim location, and being as it's somewhat hard to see, I won't stay here too long. Item-wise, we make sure to grab a full heal, an escape rope, the Charizard IY, a super potion, and a nugget. There is a room at the bottom of the area where we can technically capture Heatran, but as stated before, I want to stay away from those until we have upgraded our Pokédex. With that complete, there isn't any other side locations I want to visit before heading to the league. So I then make my way over to Evergrande City, which isn't so much a city and more of a single Pokemon Center acting as a checkpoint before entering Victory Road. Before heading inside, there's a 5% Corsola that I need to catch here, and I actually get quite lucky and reel it in on my very first cast. Corsola's branches glitter very beautifully in 7 colors when they catch sunlight. If any branch breaks off, this Pokemon grows it back in just one night. Corsola is a pretty forgettable Pokemon, or at least it used to be for me. But if you've seen the gorgeous blue of its shiny, you'll know it's one of the best out there. Before we head into Victory Road, there's a single hidden item here being a revive. In my opinion, this is the second best Victory Road in the history of Pokemon, second only to Pokemon Black and White 2. But before we talk more about that, there are some new Pokemon that we need to add to our collection, and the first I find is a little Loudred. Loudred's bellowing can completely decimate a wood frame house. It uses its voice to punish its foes. This Pokemon's round ears serve as loudspeakers. I wonder if at parties, people invite Loudred just to be the speaker/DJ. I could totally see that. Second here is the fighting psychic type Medicham. It is said that through meditation, Medicham heightens energy inside its body and sharpens its 6th sense. This Pokemon hides its presence by merging itself with fields and mountains. Medicham is actually a super underrated Pokemon in my opinion, and spoiler alert, you might just be seeing one on my team in the next Forever Save. Third is another fighting type in Hariyama. Hariyama practices its straight arm slaps in any number of locations. One hit of this Pokemon's powerful, open-handed straight arm punches could snap a telephone pole in 2. Okay, so telephone poles vary in material, some made of wood, others of steel, sometimes even concrete. If this dex entry is saying that it can punch through any of these, you have nothing but my respect, Hariyama. Fourth is the rock steel type Lairon. Lairon tempers its steel body by drinking highly nutritious mineral spring water until it is bloated. This Pokemon makes its nest close to springs of delicious water. I have yet to see this Pokemon located near springs, but I do think it would be funny to see a bloated Lairon. Next, I want to touch on a few things I've got going on in my life. I try to keep my videos right around the 1 hour mark, but as you'll notice, this one is a bit shorter. There's a few reasons for that. One is that I didn't realize how much content that I was going to be covering before the league, and I somehow genuinely thought that I'd be able to take down the league, complete the Delta episode, cover all the routes, catch all the new Pokemon and all of the legendaries around the map in one episode. Actually insane that I said that, and if you're watching the supercut of this, you probably also thought that was insane for me to say earlier. Anyways, what this does is put me in an awkward spot lengthwise, where if I were to take on the league and then start the Delta episode, I would either have to cut it off somewhere in the middle or make a very long video and delay the standard upload schedule. So this video, the main goal is to take on the league. But I won't lie, I'm really getting the itch for some of the older Pokemon games. This will be the final video on the Omega Ruby Forever Save, for now. Emphasis on for now. I plan on returning to do post-game content, but having played so much Gen 6 recently, I know I'm going to burn out if I don't mix it up. What this means is that I plan on starting a new Forever Save in one of 3 games, and I'd love to get your opinion on which one. What I'm thinking now is Pokemon Heart Gold / Soul Silver, Pokemon Black and White 2, or Platinum. These 3 games are phenomenal and I genuinely can't wait to play them. Of course, we will eventually cover all 3, but whichever one you guys want to see the most is what I will start with. I currently have a poll up on Patreon, which you can vote on even without becoming a member. However, if you'd prefer to let me know down in the comments, that's totally cool too, as I read every single one. One more thing is that I will be out of town next week in North Carolina visiting some family, and I won't be able to record while I'm up there. Basically, I have 2 options, as I still want to make a video for you guys. First is a supercut of basically all of the dex entries. What I would do is cut the clips from my Forever Save videos and would title it something like 1 hour of Gen 6 dex entries to fall asleep to. Option 2 is my complete journey through Pokemon Omega Ruby. Basically a 2.5 hour video where the Pokemon Omega Ruby Forever Save videos are all combined into one. In addition, I plan on adding some fun Easter eggs into that video and cut out the intros in between each one, along with some post-commentary bits here and there to keep it fresh. Both of these videos will probably get posted on the channel regardless. I would just appreciate which one you'd prefer me to work on next week while I'm out of town. Oh, and one more quick thing, that Discord server I was talking about earlier, it's done and ready. So if you want a space you can chat with me and maybe some other people that are doing Forever Saves, I'll have the Discord linked at the top of the description. Okay, sorry for my long rant, let's collect the items here. A Max Repel, a Full Heal, an Ultra Ball, a PP Up, an Elixir, the Psychic TM, and the Flamethrower TM. This area right here is what sets this victory road apart from the rest. This is some of the best Pokemon has ever looked in my opinion. Now, I don't play Pokemon for the graphics, but taking a look at some of the more recent games, there's just something special about these that set them apart. Now, it's not entirely fair to compare these two, as they're on completely different consoles, and the more recent games lean into a more open world genre. But what I can say is that I'm a sucker for the Gen 6 games. Before challenging Wally, we quickly grab an Iron and the X-Scissor TM. At the end of Victory Road, Wally awaits our challenge. I actually like how they did Wally's character in this game, which may be seen as somewhat controversial, but having him start out by begging just to borrow a Zigzagoon and catch a Ralts, and then being the final obstacle in Victory Road, Wally has come a long way. He may not be the strongest trainer, especially considering he's using a Delcatty, but he does boast a Mega Gallade. That's pretty cool, although I do dislike that this is the first time you can get a Dawnstone in these games. After taking down Wally, he hands us the single Dawnstone you get access to thus far. Again, I just want to appreciate how good this area looks, like seriously. Anyways, just north of this is the entrance to the Pokemon League itself, and waiting outside is the Mewtwo Knight Y. Up here, I make sure to stock up on some Hyper Potions before it's finally time to challenge the Pokemon League. This is the reason I love this league's design so much. Just take a look at this area. The atmosphere, the colors, the bridge, the attention to detail here is absurd. Originally, I was going to do a live commentary while taking down the Elite Four. However, I don't think that would be doing it justice. Sydney is the first member of the league who is a dark type specialist. Unfortunately, his team is quite underwhelming though. I personally think he should have a Mega Absol, since, well, Absol is already his ace. I know they're trying to make the games easier for the younger audience, but making his Absol Mega would be a really nice touch, because the Elite Four is, well, literally the final challenge of the game. Regardless, Luna ends up sweeping the entire team, despite being my lowest leveled member, and just past this lies an even more cinematic area. Look at the colors here, the atmosphere, and the freaking lilies below. This environment feels magical, and again, I truly think this Elite Four is one of the best ever designed. Inside awaits Phoebe, a ghost type specialist. Again, her team is somewhat underwhelming as she boasts 2 Bayonets and a Sableye. She does at least have a Dusknoir as her ace, but the only ghost type move it has is Hex? And this thing is a physical attacker? Okay, I take it back. This fight is kind of a joke. Moving on, these areas just keep getting cooler and cooler. See what I did there? by the way, you should subscribe. Anyways, this area looks quite aesthetic. However, it looks like the drop off of the sides here go pretty far down, so definitely watch your step. Inside is probably the least interesting Elite 4 member, Glacia. Look, I know I'm hating on the actual league members, but these long bridges make it seem like you're going into an amazing fight. Just for Glacia to have 2 Frostlass and 2 Glalie? Look, I love Frostlass as much as the next guy, but 2 and Glalies with no Mega? Not to mention, Glalie's only Ice-type move is Ice Shard? Okay, look, I'm not a hater. I'm just pointing out a few flaws, that's all. Okay, but this last area, surely we're gearing up for the fight of all fights, the duel of all duels. This is final boss level design. Inside awaits Drake, and you know what? Drake has a pretty good team. As a dragon type specialist, I'd expect no less, and surprisingly, all 5 of his Pokemon have really good movesets. Dragon Pulse, Dragon Claw, Earthquake, Ice Beam, they even have good coverage too. Unfortunately for him, dragon types have a fairly common weakness, so we are able to win. But good job, Drake. I have no complaints for your team. Finally, I find myself in a very tall hallway, and as I approach the end, these massive doors begin to open, and behind, the final challenge awaits. Champion Steven, an ally, a fellow trainer, and maybe even a friend, challenges us to one final battle. Steven, if this were a Nuzlocke, this would have gone much differently, but I have a very overleveled Ninetales, so your Mega Metagross doesn't even get to attack. I'm sorry. Steven, impressed by our win, is deep in thought and explains that he learned a lot from our battle. And then our rival rushes in only to see that we have already taken down the champion. As these final scenes roll, let me ask you something. What does happiness look like? Some say spending time with friends, others may say playing games. Most people are so caught up in trying to be successful, trying to get to the point where they can be happy, doing everything that they can for later. Today, I encourage you not to live for later. Later will come, but after today is over, it's gone. You can't get back the days that have already passed by. Take a moment to realize all the amazing things going on around you. Stop for a moment and enjoy the trees. Maybe watch the sunset tonight, even if only for a moment. Start that book you've always wanted to write. Maybe call a friend that you haven't spoken to in a while. Maybe this message isn't for you, but regardless, I encourage you to stop for a moment and instead of living for tomorrow, live a little today.